What's up, San Diego?
San Diego, turn it up. From the dugout to the sidelines, from the front office to the fan in the stands, this is where San Diego sports comes to be heard.
College athletics is the gift that keeps on giving. This is why I love this stuff.
He's not just talking about the game, he's driving the conversation, breaking it down, calling it out, and saying what everyone else won't.
They start licking their chops, man, when they hear like, oh, look at all these guys the Padres could potentially trade.
This is the voice San Diego sports trusts on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
We're your favorite show.
This is the Braden Surprenant Show.
Think about the children. The family show.
Now, here's Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego, and happy Friday to everybody out there in America's finest city. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, live and local each and every day from 10 to 2. We got you up to Gwen and Chris today, and then Eco Water SoCal Padres pregame show and Padres baseball. Jam-packed Friday. Looking forward to it. We're going to talk, obviously, a lot of Padres baseball. We're going to talk a lot of trade deadline conversations since this is, relatively the last day. We're going to be able to talk about it until deadline day. And, of course, we'll see if moves start happening today. We heard from, Jeff Passan was thinking that this was going to be the day where you start to see moves get made. Mets made a move last night. A.J. Minter's gone. The beginning of the fire sale has begun. Frank, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? How do you feel about that?
It doesn't. I don't.
No feeling whatsoever.
Nope.
What about them bringing a fan favorite son back? Are you going to buy his jersey? You excited?
That's cool.
I would say you'd move on to New York Giants football, but I don't think that's accurate.
No, I'll just move on to New York Islanders. Never mind.
The Knicks won.
Yeah, they did. They did do that, yeah.
The Knicks won, so quit your bitching. You know what? You sacrifice for the betterment of all the Yankees fans that like the Knicks. You sacrificed the Mets so the Knicks could win. How does that make you feel? It doesn't. I could tell. You could tell he just doesn't. He doesn't want to say anything. It's like, I'm done. Not answering this.
No,
answering
we
this.
Good.
We good. Padres last night. Not. You know who's not good? I'm going to say this. Who's not good? The Padres fans on social media. Not good. I mean, come on, guys. I get it. They lost yesterday. Did we think they were going to win every game from the rest of the way?
Yes.
They were going to win 50-something games in a row?
Yes.
I could not believe the sentiment on social media. This is why we have the definition of a windsock, man. Anybody that went out there and tweeted how we're back after winning 5 games in a row and then immediately said, this team sucks, sell everything. It's like, come on. Unless you're trolling people, which even then is kind of ridiculous. Do you guys read the stuff that you put out? Do you understand that that's on the internet for a long time? Do you not understand that we can literally search it and be just this you, big dog? What are we doing? That's going to be, I cannot wait for the trade deadline because then I could stop looking at dumb comments from people saying every time they win, I want you to alert everybody, we back up. And every time we lose, it's this team sucks, fire Preller, sell everybody. Even if you're trolling, it's ridiculous. I mean, what are we doing?
Speaking of telling people that something's going to happen, MLB underdog MLB, per John Heyman.
Oh boy,
Mason Miller unlikely to be traded.
When did that come out?
48 minutes ago.
Wow. Why don't you fire off the breaking news sounder?
Because I didn't want to scare people with breaking news. Mason Miller. Unlikely to be traded. Who would have ever guessed that would be the end result of all this?
You know what? Who knows? Okay. That's how I view last night's overreaction to the game. Did they play well yesterday? No, they didn't. Did they let Robbie Ray be effectively wild and mow them down? They did. Did they from a pitching standpoint, not necessarily give you the best outing early. Yeah, I mean, they look like you know what they look like today? Like they looked like today they looked or yesterday they looked like a team that seemed like they looked at the standings before the game started and were like, "You know what? We're okay." That's how they played last night. I'm not saying that's what they did, but I'm saying that's what it looked like last night. They just looked like, all right, we got the 5 wins in a row, and it's not that big of a deal if they lose, and it's not a big deal that they lost last night. They didn't they didn't gain ground on Arizona, and Philadelphia didn't play. They lost a half game in the standings, so now instead of being a game and a half back, they're 2 games back. That was relatively where they were anyway. So, from that perspective, okay, it's a missed opportunity to be cutthroat and go out there and try to beat somebody's ass. Fair enough. But this team hasn't really done that in the last handful of years anyway. I will say they had pretty decent at-bats. They hit the ball very hard. They didn't get a lot of breaks. If you look at the runs that they gave up, how many times do we have to continue to say that walks and home runs kill this team? I mean, the walks killed them last night. The other thing that hurt them last night, too, is Rafael Devers drops down a bunt on the shift. I mean, at this point in the season, it's like, all right, thanks for doing that to get on the base. But you know what? You got to give them credit. The Giants played well. They're coming off of taking 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee. There's probably a handful of guys on that team that are trying to play their way out of San Francisco right now at the trade deadline. And they look better than you last night. But it's not the end of the world that they lost last night. They can't now lose 2 more games this weekend. That's a fact. They definitely have to win tonight, and they definitely have to win a couple of games over the weekend, because they're in a position where they can't give up wins. It's unfortunate they lost last night, but it's not the end of the world. I just felt like a lot of people thought last night was the end of the world that they lost the game. You're going to see games like that. You are. That is a game, we've talked about it already because they've had a couple of these so far in the second half. That's a game that if you took care of business in the first half, it's like, hey, it happens. It happens. But what you can't do is you can't let that spiral out of control and be in a position where you start falling back in the standings and you lose all the ground that you just made up. And the reason why you can't lose too many more times this weekend is because this is a team that you're expected to beat, and this is like I don't want to say easier wins, but it's going to be a lot better playing the Giants than it is next week playing Arizona, which is obviously must win. And it's going to be a lot easier playing the Giants than it is playing Milwaukee coming up when they come back home. It's going to be a lot easier than playing. There's a couple of teams on here that they still have to face that are, in contention. The Houston Astros are in contention right now in the American League West. I mean, that's a team that, who knows, they might be a little bit different next week when you play them. I mean, just looking at the schedule, this is the week you got to rack up some wins against Colorado, which you did, and Miami, which you did, and then San Francisco. There's 3 games left in the weekend series. They can overcome it. I think they're more than capable of winning the next 3 games in a row against this team. But with Houston and Milwaukee coming up, you got to try to do your best against those teams. And then you got Cleveland. So you don't want to lose your place in the standings. You don't want to give up ground. You put yourself in a position, you're in striking distance, not only for the final wild card spot, but the 5th wild card spot. And yes, you're going to have a little bit of a break, later in this month. But as of right now, you've got a lot of playoff teams in your way. Right? You got you got Arizona who is in a playoff spot. You got Houston that's battling for a playoff spot. You got Milwaukee who's leading their division. You got Cleveland battling for a playoff spot. I mean, Minnesota apparently is looking to buy. They're not selling anybody. I don't necessarily know they're going to do enough to be that good come August 21st, but we'll see. You got Pittsburgh battling for a playoff spot. Tampa is a team that is in a division lead. Cincinnati, they're going to sell. Then you got the Yankees battling for a playoff spot in a position of, probably going to be in the playoffs. Washington, now it starts to ease up again. You got Washington, San Francisco, Colorado, Miami, but you can't wait until those 4 series to rack up wins. You got to get it now. That's what makes yesterday frustrating. But at the same time, like, they're not going to win every game. We knew that. I mean, Frank thought they might win every 50 games from here on out, but I don't think anybody else thought they were going to win that many games. They weren't going to win that many games in a row. It would have been nice to go on the Red Sox streak. It doesn't happen that often. They won 5 games straight. Just because they lost today or lost yesterday doesn't mean they're going to go and continue to lose. But you have to prevent that from happening. That's what makes yesterday a little bit more frustrating than any of the other days. But the Padres still remain 2 games out of a playoff spot. Diamondbacks and Phillies gained a half game on the Pods. Every team behind them did not make up any ground because they lost. 1 loss isn't a big deal. But if they get 2 or 3 in a row, it can undo everything that they just did. But I'm not in the group that said, that this shows that the 5-game winning streak was a fluke because those teams were bad. Losing 1 game to San Francisco, where Robbie Ray had a good night and you offensively did not have that great of a night, and then the fact that that your pitching staff did okay. That doesn't negate the 5 wins that you already had. I mean, those games still count. But my biggest takeaway was Robbie Ray was pitching like he has his last 7 starts with a sub 1.5 ERA, and he looked like a guy that was trying to pitch his way out of San Francisco. JP Sears, got himself hurt on the walk early in the first inning. He gave up a bad pitch on a home run. Wandy Peralta led an inning with a bunt against the shift and a walk hurt him. And those are the 4 runs that the Giants had. I mean, they kept putting guys on base. I thought a lot of the pitchers yesterday for the Padres did a good job getting out of those jams. I mean, I had people chirping at me about Randy Vasquez. Randy Vasquez went 4 2/3 of no-run ball. I mean, if Randy Vasquez started the game and gave you 4 2/3 and did not allow a run, you 100% people would be like, "That's just great." I think that goes too with the chaos pitching. Another benefit that it has is if things don't go well, you could have one of these guys that is a long relief guy, since you have a lot of them, just kind of eat the rest of the game. And that's what Randy did. I thought Randy did a really good job yesterday of preserving the bullpen for the rest of the weekend. I thought he did a great job. JP Sears had some early damage he couldn't overcome. Wandy Peralta could not slam the door on putting up a 0, and the Giants got that extra run that made it a little bit more difficult for the Padres, who hit into too many ground ball double plays and didn't challenge the right pitches late, and just didn't get the clutch hit. Xander Bogaerts drove in a run. That was it on the game. But overall, Frank, just talking about yesterday's game, Robbie Ray pitched really well. Padres didn't they didn't get the ball to bounce their way a couple of times. JP Sears, too many mistake pitches on a walk and a home run, and the Giants beat you, but it's not the end of the world.
No, it's not. And you didn't know who you were facing until maybe 3 hours before the game started. So I mean, that's also another thing that you have to factor in. Now you do know who you're facing tonight. Carson Whisenhunt is going to be the starting pitcher for San Francisco tonight. But last night it's one of those games. The offense just did not click. You only had 6 hits in the game last night. Luis Rengifo, batting in the number 2 spot last night, was the only one that had a multi-hit game. Just weren't able to get it going against a guy who's been very good this year and has played himself into a trade deadline position to where he most likely could get moved. Most likely his last appearance as a San Francisco Giant. And he performed. What was it, 6 1/3 he went last night, or did he get pulled after the 6th?
Who, Robbie Ray?
Yeah.
He went 6. I think he went 6. I think he gave him 6. Because I think they pulled him before the 7th. He was doing the whole, congratulatory thing at the, He pitched well. He was effectively wild. He got a couple of calls at the top of the zone. Padres were chasing it. I mean, he made the 90, 92, 93 look devastating yesterday. But he's done very well in his last 7 starts. I mean, he had like I mentioned before, he had sub 1.3 ERA. But he went 6 innings. He gave up the 1 earned run, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts. But the Padres yesterday, I mean, the reason why he only went 6 innings is because they worked a lot of favorable counts, but then they failed to turn those counts into walks. They failed to square balls up. They failed to deliver timely hits. And against really good pitchers, you're not going to get too many opportunities. They didn't get a lot of opportunities yesterday, and the opportunities they did get offensively, they wasted. And you can't do that in the playoffs. And you can't do that in the next 2 months. You have to be able to take advantage of when pitchers make mistakes. And the Padres didn't do that last night.
No, they did not. And it was, if this were the first month of the season, you'd be like, okay, this is kind of back to where you expect them to be. They had a good weekend like they had in Seattle, and now this is kind of where it is. It's very encouraging that you don't necessarily think that anymore. The way you look at last night's game was, okay, last night's game feels more like a bump in the road as compared to, well, we're just getting back to what we were doing.
Other things from last night. I mean, I got distracted by the Wisenhunt thing. This isn't like Ken Wisenhunt's son, is it?
I do not know.
No relation? That's what I
to
think of when I saw
be able to tell you.
Wisenhunt, who's a offensive coordinator for the. No, it's not. What's this guy's name? Carson?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ken's son is Ken Jr. Never mind. But anyway, I feel like tonight feels like a must win because of the fact that you're going against a rookie in Carson Wisenhunt with a 4.85 ERA. I mean, that's exactly the type of game that playoff teams win, especially coming off of a loss. So if the Padres struggle again offensively against an inexperienced starter, then you kind of have to start, roaring back on the, rearing the ugly head of, was those 5 games just kind of a nice little stretch, but not the team who they think they are. I mean, Jake Cronenworth mentioned that the team yesterday or 2 days ago against Colorado was like, this is the identity of the team. You didn't see that identity yesterday, which I think is frustrating for fans. I'm sure you're going to see a lot of on social media. Every time they win, it's time to buy, we're back. And every time they lose, it's time to sell. We only have a couple more days of this left. And there's a lot of, interesting conversations that came out of Kevin Acey's daily newsletter about what they do at the deadline, as well as some updates on Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta and what they're expected to do, which obviously changes a lot. And we talked about the pitching staff yesterday, Frank. We started running the numbers, but Kevin Acey mentioned it. A lot of these guys who are willing to do the pitching chaos right now, right? These are guys that are not going to be on the team by the time it's like fully deployed, right? Like there are currently 13 pitchers on the roster. Well, if and when you get these players back, and it sounds like Musgrove and Pivetta are trending in the right direction, David Morgan, Jason Adam, to name a few, Lucas Giolito is expected to be back soon. You're going to have 18 pitchers, and you can only carry 13, which, is a blessing for the Padres because now they can start lopping off maybe some guys that don't fit this team at this point in the year. But there's going to be some movement, either via the trade deadline or via guys getting DFA'd. And so I think it's very easy for a lot of these players that have been asked about the chaos pitching if they're willing to do it. I think they are because they're a lot of these guys are pitching for a job right now. I mean, you got some competition for a job in this pitching staff, which I think is a pretty good. It's pretty good as long as they can continue to compete. We'll see what the Padres decide to do. But we have updates for you on Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. We also have some nuggets from Kevin Acey's daily newsletter about the trade deadline and what is expected. We're going to get to both of those things next as we roll and get started here on the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's number sports station, 97 through the Fan. San Diego FC finally find the missing piece. Club introduced new designated player Elias Okuri this week, and unlike the Chucky Lozano signing, the move was made by sporting director Tyler Heaps and coach Mikey Varas after months of scouting to make sure he fits the team's culture and style. Then, just hours later, San Diego picked up a huge 1-0 victory over FC Dallas behind Alejandro Alvarado Jr.'s first MLS goal and a game-saving defensive play from Mano Dua in stoppage time. After blowing late leads all season, San Diego FC finally finished a match. Now the question becomes, can Okuri help lead San Diego back into the playoff race? Second half of the season starts now. And we look at the way that they were able to revive themselves over the weekend, got that extra player they needed, Frank, and ended up getting a 1-0 victory.
Yeah, the club officially announced Tunisian international winger Elias Okuri as its newest designated player, and just hours later earned a much-needed 1-0 victory over FC Dallas. So after months of late-game collapses and inconsistent play, they showed signs of San Diego FC that we remember from last year and before the start of this season. It was a very, very big weekend for San Diego FC for sure.
Which started with a very frustrating week, obviously, because they suffered a heartbreaking 1-0 loss at Colorado after conceding a goal in stoppage time, continuing a troubling trend of giving away points late in matches. But the response against FC Dallas was exactly what this club needed. Alejandro Alvarado Jr. scored his first MLS goal to give San Diego the lead. Monodua made a spectacular recovery block in stoppage time to preserve the victory, and it marked the club's first win since May, and more importantly, proved they can finally close out a match. They needed that in the biggest way.
Yeah, first win since May. They haven't played since about May because of the World Cup, so it's not like a big dry spell for them. But yeah, this was a huge comeback victory, and for Alvarado, a huge announce yourself moment for them. We talked about it on the show on Monday about him consistently trying to be more of a team player and be a playmaker and look for the perfect pass. Instead of just going out there and taking the moment for himself, he does that, takes a long shot from outside the box and rolls it on through for the one and only goal in the 50th minute of that game on Saturday night. So big moment for Alvarado. And again, it felt like a turning point for San Diego FC.
San Diego now travels to face Minnesota United, one of the Western Conference's toughest teams at home. Big question is whether San Diego FC can build on the momentum from the Dallas victory before opening a very important Leagues Cup play against Club Tijuana next week. I mean, it's only one game, but I feel like, the consistencies or the trend lines and the mirroring between the Padres and San Diego FC both need a better second half. Both have shown that they can compete at a high level. Both haven't been able to finish, and both finally started to do that, but need to do it on a consistent basis. We saw that San Diego FC can be the team that you expect them to be, but can they do that more than just once a week? That's going to be the big question leading into a very tough stretch for them in the second half.
Yeah, and right now, San Diego FC currently sees themselves within striking position as far as the standings out west are concerned. They currently sit at 20 points, and the cut line is 25. That's 2 wins. Right. Actually, no, I'm sorry. The cut line sits at 23. That's 2 wins. That's an win. And you're playing the team that currently holds that cut line position, that playoff position right now in Minnesota. They're sitting 1 point behind Seattle. Houston and Dallas are at 26 points. They're 5-6. And St. Louis City is at 25 points, and they're sitting 7th. So you're not far away. You can still make moves, and there's a lot of time left in this season. You're going to be playing a lot of games here very, very close because you had to stop for the World Cup break. But still, a playoff spot is certainly not out of the question. You look and see, they're 12th in standings. They're a win away from being a playoff team. So, yes, they could be doing a lot better, but they're not far off of where they need to be.
Elias Akori, too, is, a new designated player. And, Chucky Lozano, obviously, he's got a cult following, and they were on display over the weekend. And we mentioned this on the show. I mean, with the problems that San Diego FC has, Chucky Lozano's not fixing those problems. This is not a byproduct of not having him part of the team anymore. But which is interesting about Akori is, they signed Lozano to be that mainstay guy, the promotion face of the franchise to get people engaged with San Diego FC. But now that they have established themselves as a team that can compete, you want to have somebody that actually fits your team and fits your style of play and fit Mike Ybarra's style of play. And Akori is one of those guys. I mean, he's not being asked to replace Lozano. He's being asked to fit the system that Mike Ybarra runs. And I think this is a big move that we know how. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3. The Fan. All right, a couple of updates for you on Joe Musgrove and on Nick Pivetta. Anyway. From the article from the Daily Newsletter. I know did we have the sound on that?
From
I think
what?
it's from our account. I think 97.3 had it yesterday, just to kind of hear from Craig Stammen himself. I don't remember if the
We've also got the management report with Craig this morning.
did he have an update on them on that one?
I'm not sure if he had an update on them, but we do have that audio we can play.
Yeah, I was gonna play that later on some other stuff, but if they have anything on Pivetta and Musgrove, then maybe that's loading right now. No, we'll get to those comments later. He did not have it. Let's go down to they had it yesterday on Craig Stammen on update on I thought so. Maybe
No,
saw
I
it.
didn't see it.
No,
Looking
I
at
must have saw it
Sam's stuff too.
I must have
he
saw it on
doesn't have
somebody
it.
else's deal yesterday about the updates. But anyway, based on the article that Kevin Acee put out, here's your update on Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. So the biggest positive update came from the injured rotation yesterday. Joe Musgrove faced hitters, simulated 2 innings, fastball back into the 90s, bullpen session this weekend, rehab assignment likely on Tuesday. He said that for both Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta, with an expected return around August 19th to the 22nd. That was in today's daily newsletter. Nick Pivetta, following the exact same schedule, he also faced hitters. He also simulated 2 innings. His fastball looked a lot better too. But, Pivetta obviously has that wrinkle where if he stays on the injured list for 130 days, his 2027 option converts to a team option, meaning Padres gain some flexibility with Pivetta, but he needs to return by August 22nd in order for himself to not pick up that, in order for himself to retain that player option. He needs to come before August 22nd, so they're obviously cutting it close. But both pitchers remain on schedule. Sounds like they could, in fact, be having rehab assignments on Tuesday. And if that's the case, I think that's a step in the right direction, Frank. I think that's good news. The organization still expects to acquire another starter, but internally, they believe the biggest upgrades are Musgrove and Pivetta. And the other thing, too, in the newsletter, they're not expecting him to come back and be part of this, chaos thinking. They're expected to come back and give you 5 innings. That's kind of the goal right now for both Musgrove and Pivetta. And Musgrove hasn't pitched since Tommy John surgery in October of 2024, but he was sidelined. He wasn't sidelined again for problems with his elbow in terms of Tommy John. It was stemming from the lack of cartilage in his elbow. That's what has been the big problem for him. So we'll see what they decide to do. But, they think that Pivetta and Musgrove are going to return as starters. And it says in this article, capable of going 5 or more innings. They also mentioned that starter Lucas Giolito is expected to be ready to return this month as well. I mean, you start looking at the potential for this starting rotation if they can make it to this point. It could be good enough to get you into the playoffs. It could be good enough to get you through the playoffs, but it's one of those deals where it's I'll believe it when I see it until they show up,
Yeah, and especially for Musgrove, who again is only pitched in 1 spring training outing since last year, since the end of 2024. So for Musgrove, it'll be interesting to see his timeline. It does sound, what'd you say, the end of August is when he should be coming back?
They said for Pivetta and Musgrove, August 19th to the 22nd is what Kevin Acee has written in his newsletter today.
Okay.
Which is an interesting timeline. I mean, if they go a rehab assignment Tuesday, which would be August 4th, they would probably get a couple of spots in there, and then they're going to be ready to go by August 19th, August 22nd. I mean, they've already pitched, they're up to 2 innings now. I mean, I'm sure they're going to, let him go a little bit in a minor league rehab start. But to think that they're going to get 5 innings out of both of these guys when they come back, I think is a little wishful thinking. I hope it's the case. That would be nice for this team. And it changes some things. But I find it kind of like a hope at this point. The more they pitch, though, as soon as they go on a rehab assignment, and if they can make it through a start or 2 without any setbacks, it will start being more believable to me that they are going to be back on this club with some sort of impact. But if they can't get through that first game is going to be telling. If they have issues after pitching that first game, that really puts a black hole on this team for 2026, and that's even after they as mentioned in the article, going after to add a starting pitcher, which they're expected to do by Monday.
Yeah, you can't rely on those guys. You can rely on them like piggyback situations, but if you're looking to get like 6-7 innings out of those guys,
they said 5.
mistaken.
I mean, they said 5. I still think that's kind of a reach.
I'm talking about like a fan perspective. If you guys are expecting those guys to come back and immediately be what they were before they went, you're in for a very rude awakening. These are going to be guys that are going to be going 4 or 5 innings, much like the rest of your starting pitching staff has done. I would have to assume Musgrove is going to be on a more strict pitch count than Nick Pivetta would be based off of the injuries that they're coming back from. But yeah, those are, if you're going into this and hearing this saying that we are going to be able to rely on Nick Pivetta and we are going to be able to rely on Joe Musgrove, it's going to be like getting 2 guys at the trade deadline. You're going to be in for a very, very rude awakening.
The other part of this, and you almost want him to pitch like a lot better than he has the last 5 days, because Wandy Peralta has not been very good in his last 5 outings. But it says at the bottom of this, because they're talking about the guys that are coming back, right? So David Morgan has begun pitching again against minor leaguers in Arizona and could be good to go in a couple of weeks. Jason Adams is expected by late August, early September. Lucas Giolito is expected to be ready to return this month as well. Joe Musgrove, Nick Pivetta. And so this is all for the all hands on deck for now as you try to figure out what your pitching staff is with all of these guys hurt. I mean, there's a significant number of pitchers that are hurt right now for this Padres team. But the last part I find interesting, the staff could be thinned by moving bullpen pieces at the deadline. Multiple people in the organization and elsewhere around the league see that as likely. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. I think teams are so desperate for pitching right now that you could probably get something good back for Wandy Peralta. Mm-hmm. I think you could get something decent back for Yuki Matsui. But as we mentioned, 18 guys would be back if with all 5 of these guys coming back, which means you got to lop off 5 players off your pitching staff, which I don't think a lot of Padres fans think is a bad thing right now. And we talked about it yesterday. But I look at that and go, I don't think they're talking about Miller, and I don't think they're talking about Morejon. I think they're talking about guys like Wandy Peralta. And if you just saw this latest update from Will Salmon, the New York Mets are asking teams for a top 100 prospect and more in conversations about Freddie Peralta.
They're talking to the White Sox right now from, I believe that was Mark Marino, I believe it was. I forget his first name, but his last name was Marino. They're talking with the White Sox right now. I believe they're also about George Wilcow and Boston Smith and more. That's what that is looking like. It's so Peralta to the White Sox gaining momentum right now.
So if that's the asking price for Freddie Peralta, and let me ask the Mets fan,
and he's going to be pitching tonight too.
How good is Freddie Peralta this year?
He's been so bad this year. He's been ridiculously bad.
Top 100 prospect for him, and he's a rental. I'm telling you, I think the Padres can hang on to Morejon and Miller.
Michael Marino is the guy's name.
And be able to trade off some of these other assets. I mean, Yuki Matsui's got a sub-3 ERA. Wandy Peralta's got a 3-something ERA. These are 2 guys that teams are desperate to have right now at the trade deadline with not many sellers. And if you're a team like the Padres, you could benefit from even trading those parts away. And I think it would drastically improve your pitching staff. And that's assuming you get one. We talked about it yesterday, assuming you get one of Musgrove and Pivetta back. I mean, if you get both Musgrove, and this is a big if, but I had it yesterday. If you get Musgrove and Pivetta back, mix it with Buehler and, Giolito, and then you got, one arm that you pick up at the deadline. It might be like a Kevin Gossman type. I mean, you got a decent rotation right there. And we didn't even talk about Michael King. And then your bullpen. I mean, your bullpen would look like Miller, Adam, Morejon, Estrada, Rodriguez, David Morgan. You probably go with Kyle Hart, Randy Vasquez. You get anything type of outing like Randy Vasquez had yesterday. That's a solid pitching staff that can get you through this. And I don't think it's going to cost you too much. And maybe you flip Wandy and Yuki, and you get some pieces back that you could flip for your own starting arm. Maybe, whatever you get back from those guys, you can add to some other prospects that you might have. I think A.J. Preller's going to get very creative here, and I think you're going to get. I think you could make. I think you can make this happen. But they got to continue to win some games here and not dig themselves into a hole. They got to make it to August 3rd, which is 3 games left. Now, something else came out, and whether or not you believe Bob Nightingale or not, we're going to get to this because I think it's important. We're going to talk about some interesting nuggets that involve the trade deadline that Bob Nightingale reported today. We'll get to that when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number Sports Station 97 through the Fan. College sports may have just hit another major turning point. The Protect College Sports Act, a bipartisan bill designed to create national rules for NIL transfers and athlete compensation, is now unlikely to receive a Senate vote before Congress leaves for its August recess. Without federal legislation, the NCAA could continue struggling to enforce consistent rules, and conferences like the SEC and Big Ten may take even more control over their own futures. We've already heard SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey admit that discussions about creating separate rules are real. If Congress can't deliver a national solution, could college football eventually split into different governing systems? That's becoming one of the biggest questions facing the future of college athletics. Senate Majority Leader John Thune announced this week that the Protect College Sports Act is unlikely to receive a full Senate vote before lawmakers leave for their August recess. The bill, introduced by Senators Ted Cruz of Texas and Maria Cantwell of Washington, is designed to create nationwide rules for college athletics. Amongst its biggest goals are establishing consistent NIL regulations, protecting eligibility rules, clarifying transfer policies, and giving the NCAA limited antitrust protection so it can actually enforce those rules without facing constant legal challenges. Supporters believe it's the best opportunity college sports has had in years to create one national standard, but with time running out on the congressional calendar, that opportunity may have to wait. But the principle of this, Frank, I think is very good. I like all of these changes, and I think the biggest problem for Congress right now is, one, and we're going to get to this, the SEC and Big Ten aren't fully on board, but two, having them to be on board. Mm-hmm. Set your rules, and then let's have everybody follow these rules, because if the SEC and the Big Ten get to dictate what happens, you're not really setting rules for everybody anyway. You're just letting the SEC and Big Ten govern everybody else in college athletics.
No, exactly right. And the fact that you're getting this now, this vote probably won't go through until September now. So that's into the season. That's going to change everything. That's going to create a whole bunch of other issues for college athletics for this football season and potentially basketball season as well, depending upon how long this goes. So this is not an ideal situation for people who want clarity like us in college athletics going into the future. It's not necessarily the ideal scenario here, as this vote might be pushed back until the end of August or into September.
So the SEC and the Big Ten, they don't like pooling TV contracts. They don't like having to share the money. They don't a lot of these issues. They don't like the limit on expanding their conferences. And without the support of the SEC and the Big Ten, the bill faces an uphill battle in Congress. But to me, those are all the rules that you need to put in place to make it a level playing field to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? What is it going to just be the southern states that are going to have their Congress people decline this? I mean, I just think that you have to try to put this in without letting the SEC and the Big Ten benefit the most. Otherwise, it doesn't even matter.
You're getting to a point now where a vast majority of fans are starting to feel kind of the way baseball fans do. Mm-hmm. That if you keep putting this out and if you keep on delaying this, and the SEC is getting this from both ends as well, from not just this Protect College Sports Act, but also the expansion of the college football playoff, it's all about money. And the more and more people start to realize that, and the more and more of these stories are starting to come out, you're going to start getting the court of public opinion starting to agree with the NCAA more and more and more, and start paying less and less attention to these conferences not being on their side nearly as much or nearly as vigorously. So if the SEC and the Big Ten want to save at least some sort of face here, stop looking at the wallet and start looking at the bigger picture as to what is going on in college athletics.
If they take care of what's better for college football, eventually they will get to the money that they want. When you decide to just go with greed and what you already, and just have a money standpoint, it's a big reason why they call greed a 7 deadly sin, because eventually it comes back to haunt you. And the SEC and the Big Ten are so arrogant right now, they think they're indestructible, which is another big problem for major, decision makers. But, what happens if Congress doesn't act? I think if lawmakers fail to act, conferences may begin creating their own governance models. I think that creates more chaos. And you know who doesn't benefit? Anybody in college athletics, because it's less eyeballs on your product. It's less people engaged in your product. And I don't think they understand the consequences of their actions of, we're just going to split off because we're so great and everybody's going to love us. It's like, I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't. I think you're going to be a regional sport, but when you start turning yourself into a professional version of the sports, what's going to happen is you become a minor league of the professional leagues. And you know what minor league sports don't get a lot of? Attention, viewership, engagement, and at the end of the day, money. So Congress has roughly 2 weeks remaining before its August recess. And with the midterms coming up, they're not going to have a lot of time to get all of this done before they start worrying about elections. So if there's no agreement reached before the break, meaningful federal legislation may become much more difficult to pass before the election season dominates Washington. And that's a big problem for the NCAA.
Yeah, it is. It's an absolutely massive problem. And that, again, that goes into, now they're not going to pass anything in December because there's people on their way out. There's some people on their way in that might change.
Practice this afternoon. More practices tomorrow. Got USD's basketball clinic tomorrow as well. Be helping them with that. So, and then I'm going to the Padres game tomorrow. So I have a jam-packed weekend this weekend. Should be a fun time. Looking forward to that. Always love Friday shows here on the Braden Surprenant Show. We have a couple of guests today. We're going to have Heidi Watney on in the 1 o'clock hour. Drake Hills will join us to talk San Diego FC. Heidi Watney, of course, sideline reporter for Apple TV Plus, the USD Torero herself. Spent some time here, obviously, in San Diego, and is now, has been covered Major League Baseball for a long time. She'll join us. She'll be on the call tonight as a sideline reporter for Apple TV Plus. That is where the game is tonight for Padres and Giants. So it's going to be on Apple TV Plus. If you got that, that's where you watch it. If not, most of the bars will have it, I would imagine. It's part of their deal.
I believe it'll be Wayne Randazzo will be the play-by-play because he was offered to us for an interview as well. So Wayne Randazzo will have the call. Heidi Watney will be on the sideline.
Who's the color analyst?
I don't know.
It's always random when they do that.
Yeah, I think
ones.
I want to say Dontrell Willis, but I'm not 100% sure.
You know what? We're going to pull a Mike McCoy here. You'll know who's doing the color analyst when you turn on the TV right before the game starts. You'll know who's playing when he runs out there on the field. All right. We got some news from Bob Nightingale about a lot of different things. There's something about the Padres. The clip that we had, or the excerpt that we had from Kevin Acey's newsletter about the pitching staff could be thinned by moving bullpen pieces at the deadline. Multiple people in the organization elsewhere around the league see that as likely. So when you're thinking bullpen arms, you're thinking about like, oh, they're not going to trade Mason Miller, are they? They're not going to trade Adrian Morejon, are they? Here's the latest from Jeff Passan about Mason Miller before we talk about the latest report from John Heyman. But Jeff Passan was on the Pat McAfee show this morning. Here's what Jeff Passan had to say about Mason Miller.
Yeah, Jet, Mason Miller, the closer for the Padres, his name was very, very hot in the market maybe a week or two ago, and then it kind of feels like things have calmed down. I don't know, because the Padres the bats have woken up a bit. They've won 5 of 6, only 2 games back in the wild card. Can Mason Miller still be dealt, or the Padres' recent success, are they not going to be selling anymore?
So when Mason Miller's name was hottest, it was before teams understood what the ask was. And AJ Preller, the president of baseball operations for the Padres, is very clear at the beginning of any deal about what he wants. Like he will communicate openly. And in this case, when he was talking with interested parties, he said to them, nobody in your organization can be off limits. And so when you say something like that to the Mariners, for example, that means that Cade Anderson is in play. Cade Anderson's the best pitching prospect in the minor leagues right now. Do they really want to give him up for a closer? I mean, that was the kind of deal that the Padres made last year, getting Mason Miller and giving up Leo DeVries, one of the best prospects in the whole game. And the industry looked at that like, wow, that for a closer? Is that really the right thing to do? So what the Padres have right now, value-wise on Mason Miller, does not line up with what the rest of the industry sees. But we're still a few days away from the deadline, guys. And you know that prices go down. And if the Padres feel like they need to get more rotation pieces or they need to get another bat, Mason Miller and Adrian Morejon are going to bring back the most and would be, if either is dealt, the best relief pitcher on the market right now.
All right, Jet, we'll keep our eyes and our ears.
So that's the latest from Jeff Passan. Now, John Heyman reported that it is what did he say? Unlikely that the Padres trade.
Unlikely that the Padres trade.
I think it's unlikely too, because as you heard through that piece from Jeff Passan, it's, he set a high price, and I think that deters a lot of people from potentially offering. I think the only ones that still pursue that are teams like the Yankees, and I don't think they have enough to get Mason Miller. I really don't.
No, teams that are desperate enough, that are willing to overpay, that's the only one you could see.
So here's some other news for you. Do you want the Padres? Yeah, let's do the Padres news first, and I'll start, and we can get to this other stuff in the 11 o'clock hour. But one thing from Bob Nightingale's piece today, and he did write it today, he was talking. He had it's basically on Tarek Skubal, but then he does his around the base pass, and it says every team and what they're looking for and what they're willing to do, and what he's hearing. And you could take whatever Bob says, however you would like. There are certain reporters that I think a lot of Padres fans trust, and there are a lot of there's a lot of reporters that might not. But we've had a little bit of conflicting reports when it comes to taking on money for the Padres. And here's what Bob Nightingale reported. AJ Preller, Padres president of baseball operations, is telling teams that they will have extra money to spend at the deadline with their new owners on the verge of being approved, which is a lot different than what Dennis Lin and Kevin Acee have said of I don't know how much money they're going to have. I think this is not because it's more positive for the Padres. From what I've heard too, this seems more likely the situation than them not having extra money to spend because of the new ownership group. I tend to think that this is legit from Bob Nightingale. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Padres take on a couple contracts at the trade deadline.
It would make more sense, as we've heard, the reports have been that the vote is going to come the middle of next month, and I've seen a lot of fans getting antsy about this vote. It's just a formality. This is already done. All the paperwork is in now. That was the holdup. The last update that we gave. All the paperwork is now in. They're just waiting for the vote, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. You got the trade deadline coming around now. You just finished the draft, and also this pesky little CBA issue that's coming out as well. I would not be surprised that, one, the vote goes through without an issue for the new ownership, and two, that the ownership is going to have the new ownership and Feliciano is going to have a lot to say about what goes on at this trade deadline as they get ready to take over for this organization.
Yeah, I'm sure I don't know how this works at all. So like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I do on the on what happens with this deal and adding payroll and if that changes how the contract works for like buying. But I would imagine like you're not, it's probably obvious that like once the current ownership group sells, they're not paying for anybody that they bought. The new ownership group is taking over all of the expenses of said team. That's how this kind of works. So I would imagine anything that expense-wise needs to get approved by the new ownership group more than the old ownership group, if that makes sense. So if they are willing to spend money, then I think that changes the dynamic of this trade deadline. And, the exciting thing is you just don't know what that's going to look like this weekend. It could look like a lot of different things. They asked that this is where I find this part interesting. It's like we got that report from Bob Nightingale. We have seen those reports throughout the entire summer that the new ownership group is going to be willing to spend more money. But now all of a sudden, as we get close to the trade deadline, the reports from local reporters are like, well, then who knows if they're going to have extra money. And then even in today, in AC's daily newsletter, talking about Robbie Ray, and he showed exactly what the Padres need, right? He is, ironically, the pitcher that shut down the Padres is also one of the guys that could potentially be on the Padres, right? I mean, this is a guy that you could go get. 6 innings last night, 1 run, continued dominant stretch, 1.04 ERA over previous 7 starts. But the report indicates the Padres have shown interest in Robbie Ray, and the Giants may be willing to trade him. But it says in this that the biggest obstacle is not like what they have to give up to get Robbie Ray. It's what the contract is and the fact that he's owed $7.4 million in 2026, and it says it creates payroll challenges. I don't know how that's the case if what Bob Nightingale reporting is true of they're willing to take on payroll. If you're willing to take on payroll, I would imagine $7.4 million is not something that is going to be astronomically high for the new ownership group if that is actually the report. I feel like we had the spending money is going to be at the forefront of this trade deadline. We've heard multiple reports from people all summer that with the new ownership group, they're going to be able to spend money. But then all of a sudden, right before the trade deadline, the latest reports in town have been like, oh, well, we don't really know if they're going to be able to add money. It doesn't sound like they're going to be able to add money. I find that interesting, Frank. I really do. And it makes the one that obviously it's more positive, but the side of the story that makes the most sense when you have a new ownership group is they're willing to add more payroll. That's the one that makes more sense to me than like, well, all of a sudden we're going to start splitting hairs on, our finances here before you take over. I find that one to be a little bit more on the. I find that one hard to believe.
I agree, but
I don't think they want to add like a gigantic contract, but like. If they're going to add a little bit of money and go a little bit over the tax threshold, like $7.4 million still left on Robbie Ray's contract, to me is right in the wheelhouse of adding more payroll.
Yeah, that's absolutely reasonable. I would lean towards believing that there is more money flexibility because, again, as you said, it makes a lot more sense for a new ownership that's coming in that's set to be approved within the next couple of weeks or presumed to be approved within the next couple of weeks. I'm not. This season has me so gun shy as far as what to believe and what not to believe. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which way but I will say, with a new ownership coming in, it does make more sense that they would be willing to take more money on.
I think so too. I think that makes more sense. But I don't necessarily know that means like, you're taking on a massive contract, right? I don't think that's the case. I wouldn't. I don't think it's, and I know we heard a couple of times like, maybe it's like an albatross contract that you can alleviate from some team and getting a little bit back.
Like Tony brought up Rafael Devers.
Right. I don't think it's going to be as extreme. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle on the payroll. And that's probably what it's going to be. I mean, when we're talking about this on Tuesday, because Monday will be going on, and the deadline is during the next show. It's during Gwen and Chris on Monday. When it's all the dust is settled on Tuesday, it's going to make a lot more sense of, okay, they added payroll, but it wasn't this much payroll. And I think that's probably where they're at. I think it's somewhere in between. But the payroll thing definitely changes the dynamic of what this team could do at the trade deadline, because now it opens up the door to find different avenues to acquire players aside from just prospects. But if I had to guess what this team does, I think they trade away some of their bullpen pieces, not Miller or Morahone. I think they take some of that capital to get some other players, and I think they alleviate giving up a lot of prospects by adding payroll. I think that's what they do this weekend, but we'll see. They definitely need some help. What else is going on around Major League Baseball at the trade deadline? We'll get to that next. of our guests join us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. Setting us on Sports Station 97.3. The Fan, we're live and local each every day from 10 to 2. And we got a lot of trade deadline talk to talk about today. We'll talk more Padres baseball. We're going to get to our NFL training camp update at 12 noon today, just because we got a lot of other things we got to get to. Heidi Watney will join us at 1 o'clock. We'll have Drake Hills at 1:35. We've got some San Diego FC to talk about, the rest of the Padres-Giants series. Lots to get to in the next couple of hours or so. Glad you're making our day a part of yours. It's great to have you guys tuned in to us. If you haven't done so already, get yourself a Braden Surprenant Show t-shirt. Got those for you on Shopify. We appreciate a lot of you guys supporting that already. Look to try to add some more t-shirts out there. If you haven't done so already, follow us on social media at @B_SURP, at @BSURP. You can listen to our shows in podcast form on the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on replay on YouTube. Got a lot of other videos on YouTube as well. We have NFL weekly updates. We have during the seasons updates on all these different sports that we don't have time to talk about during our 4-hour show. That's how much information we get and how much we pass along on a daily basis. So we're going to get to more of that in just a little bit. We'll talk to the NFL. How about Deebo Samuel going back to the Niners? That's a nice little pickup. I literally said that. What did I say? 2 days ago? I'm like, well, Deebo Samuel's not walking through those doors. Well, apparently he is. So I guess he's back. Save Brock Purdy's ass up there in San Francisco. I just don't know. I don't know how much more production he's got left. I mean, there was a point where he was like the best player in the NFL of what he could do dynamic-wise. He could play receiver. He could play running back. I mean, the guy was an absolute weapon. He probably still has a little bit left in the tank. It's probably good to have him back in San Francisco. Seemed weird having him in Washington last year, so I like the move for the Niners. It's not getting vintage Deebo, but it'll be kind of cool to see Deebo Samuel back in the Niners uniform. I'm curious what Matt Scraby's take is on that. Do you think he's excited?
I'm sure we'll hear about it.
I'm sure you'll hear about it on Gwen and Chris. They like to argue about the Niners. Fire up the music. Let's get you the trade deadline up. This is the last trade deadline update before the actual trade deadline day on this show. What's going on in Major League Baseball?
All righty, so we've had a trade last night. We started off yesterday with the trades that happened over the previous day. Today we're doing the same. The New York Metropolitans have traded relief pitcher A.J. Minter, left-hander, to the Minnesota Twins in return for Billy Amick and Bruin Agbayani. As everyone and their mother is reminding us, Bruin Agbayani is the son of 1999 and 2000 Met Benny Agbayani. So the Mets have officially begun their fire sale. Players most likely to be moved: Clay Holmes, Freddie Peralta, Brooks Raley. Strong possibility of Luke Weaver, Luis Robert Jr., and Huascar Brazaban.
Huascar. That's fun to say. Not
available: Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Carson Bench, A.J. Ewing, Nolan McLean, and Christian Scott. The Mets have been... Clay Holmes has been saying that he wants a contract extension, but the Mets have not spoken to him about it. So most likely he will be on the move. He had a hot start before getting injured. Weaver's value keeps climbing because of his quality relievers are scarce, and he has been very good for the Mets this year. Luis Robert Jr. may require the Mets to absorb salary to facilitate the deal, but they are no longer testing the market. They're no longer trying to poke and prod and see what they can get. They are in full sell.
It's not surprising to me that Mets one of the first teams that started to make some moves. I mean, they gotta part ways with like 6 more players potentially. They are asking a lot for Freddie Peralta. I mean, the fact that some of these starting pitchers are not available definitely makes the asking price pretty high. But you're gonna see prices come down once teams do not get into a bidding war. And this is how it works, right? Like the leverage early just change. Like the leverage moves. Right? Like early on, the leverage is on the team that is buying more than the team that is selling. And then the closer you get to the deadline, it just depends how bad these teams want these guys. Like, I almost feel like the leverage for players The leverage for teams that have players that are rentals, they lose closer to the deadline because the buyers know that they have to get rid of these guys. The leverage for the teams that have guys that are under contract that don't necessarily need to sell them, they don't have as much pressure to sell. So, like, they wait for the highest bidder. And some teams will panic when they don't get anything. It's almost like the panic you have when you go back on musical chairs and there's like you're trying to find the open chair. That's kind of what a lot of teams might do at the deadline this year because there's not a lot of chairs available. Anybody on the not available list that you think could still get traded for the Mets, just because you know this team better than anybody else, at least on these airwaves?
I would say Christian Scott. I mean, he's like the least amount of upside on that. There have been a lot of reports swirling that Francisco Lindor might get traded, but that's another one that feels like an off-season deal.
He's
if
got
they
a
are
no
going to
trade
move him,
too.
Right? So I mean, that's Christian Scott. If there's one person, I would have to say Christian Scott's the one on there, though. I would say really that's the guy. That's one of the guys we're hanging our hat on here.
There's a lot of teams now that don't like giving out no trade. I know the Padres, for a lot of the deals that they have made, had to do it to make their deal a little bit sweeter than other places that could probably outbid them. But like, if you are a team that is financially capable of signing players without giving no trades, you do it. Like, Boston never puts out no trade clauses because they get hosed if they have to like keep these guys, right? And the leverage is there. Sometimes guys hold out for just more money. Hey, you want me to waive my no trade? Give me $5 million, right? Like, there's a lot of things holding up these trades. And there was an article about it the other day with Eric Hosmer, and he was holding up the trade to Washington on the Juan Soto deal because he didn't want to go to Washington. This is what hampers the no trade. But he had 10-5 rights, so that is slightly different in a partial no trade. How about the Twins, Frank?
How about them Twins?
They're declaring themselves as buyers now,
which is very, very interesting. Trading for Minter answered one huge question. Minnesota is not selling. They are trying to win. Ryan Jeffers, now seen as one of the hotter trade commodities, is now less likely to be traded. Byron Buxton's injury made Jeffers even more valuable offensively, and the Twins are now prioritizing bullpen upgrades instead of moving veterans. So that was a very confusing one. I was not surprised to see that AJ Minter got traded yesterday. I was surprised to see who he got traded to.
I can't believe Minnesota is. I mean, think of just 1 year later. What was the trade deadline last year? Was what, July 31st?
I believe something around there. Yeah.
I gotta look. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not gonna say what I think, but
they got rid of everyone.
They got rid of almost everybody last year.
It was all hands off deck.
and then it was, but then it was like this. What I didn't understand about it was they traded everybody away, and then in the offseason they like kind of added, and they're like, oh, we could compete this year. It's like, you sold everybody last year. What happens if they, like, where would the Twins be right now if they didn't do that?
You're putting a lot on guys like Byron Buxton, who is paid to do that. You're also putting a lot on guys like Trevor Larnach and Royce Lewis. Young guys who have a lot of potential, but just haven't put themselves on that spotlight yet.
Minnesota last year was 51-57 in 6 games out of a wild card during the trade deadline last year. This year, I think they're like a half game back or a game back. They're 1 game. They're 500 and 1 game back. I mean,
so it's
think about
proximity.
The difference.
It's proximity too, and not necessarily your overall record.
Yeah, I mean, their record is better, and they're only a game out, so that's probably what it is. But I mean, they got to be. Could you imagine if they didn't sell guys? Team they could have had this year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many of those prospects helped them out, but I mean, this could be a situation where the Twins buy this year and then don't have a good couple of weeks, and they end up not making the playoffs anyway.
The Detroit Tigers are quietly preparing to sell. Detroit scratched Casey Mize from his scheduled start. That's almost always a trade deadline signal that he is gone. Guys available: Casey Mize, Jack Flaherty, Gleyber Torres, Kenley Jansen, Drew Anderson. Of course, their biggest storyline is will they or won't they with Tarek Skubal. Reported suitors: Yankees, Cubs, Phillies, Brewers, Rays, Braves, and the team that shall not be named. Interesting wrinkle. Reports do suggest that the Dodgers don't necessarily want to pay Detroit's asking price, but may do it anyway just to simply prevent him from going anywhere else.
I don't know why they care. Everybody they trade away turns into crap anyway. Seriously, like think about like all the big trades. I mean, aside from Yordan Alvarez that they messed up on, their big trades at the deadline have not hurt them at all in prospect capital. Like they send these guys off and they're not nearly as good, not a member of the Dodgers. Think about all the players that they've had come up through the ranks that they talked about as like the greatest player ever. Guys like Zach McKinstry, right? Like, you know, I think it always works out for LA. I don't know why they don't just go get them. I mean, they could like probably, but at this point they could like not trade the prospects, wait for the end of the season, and then just sign Tarek Skubal.
I would expect news about a Freddie Peralta trade to be coming very, very soon.
Why, is he close to getting sent back to Milwaukee?
Per John Heyman, he has just been scratched from his start today. So I would expect that news to be coming very, very soon, that Freddie Peralta is out of Queens. Press the wrong Google Drive. There we go. Catcher's market just became fascinating. Ryan Jeffers now likely to stay. Hunter Goodman is expensive. Shea Langoliers is injured. That leaves one big name: Adley Rutschman. Baltimore is listening. The Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, and Rangers are interested in him. Trading him inside the AL East would be extremely controversial, and it's not like they don't have a backup because they got Samuel Basallo waiting in the wings behind him.
There was like it was probably like 2 years ago where I was like, you know what, it'd be great to have a guy like Adley Rutschman. I have watched the last two Chihuahuas games. I'm watching Chihuahuas baseball now, and I don't know if you could give up Ethan Salas for anybody, because I was thinking, like, if you get a guy like Adley Rutschman doesn't have too many years of control left. I mean, you would have to basically commit to him if you were going to trade for him, which means, like, you know, are you gonna have him and Ethan Salas? Maybe not. I don't know what the Baltimore Orioles would want. I mean, obviously they have Basallo there, who's under contract, but you know, Adley Rutschman is, you know, he's only got one more year of control. He's 28 years old. How good of a year is he having this year? Because didn't he have a disappointing year last year?
He's also hurt. He and Basallo are actually both hurt. That's why. Okay, so that makes more sense, because Baltimore just picked up Jake Rogers,
right,
who was DFA'd.
Orioles fans like, isn't this guy catches Skubal? Are we going to go get Skubal? Probably not, man. Probably not.
Rutschman's hitting .251, 8 homers, 47 RBIs. He's got 62 hits in 247 at-bats.
He's had a lot better year this year than he did last year. I mean, last year in 90 games, now he was hurt last year. He was terrible. It was his worst year that he has had in the big leagues. Remember, he is a college kid that got drafted. So
he's also a guy, like, if you go by 23 and 24, I tend to put out the rookie year. So 23 and 24, he'll get you a good 15 to 20 home runs and like 70 to 80 RBIs, which for a catcher is not bad. He hit 277 in 23, and he hit 250 in 24. So this year, he's more or less on pace, maybe a little bit off as far as his power numbers and run production is concerned. But he's on pace to be average this year.
I agree with one reason in the chat. For Mean and for Rutschman, 1 for 1. Who says no? Probably the Orioles.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one. The Cardinals. This is not surprising to me. They should have. This was like they could have announced this the first day of the year.
St. Louis continues to prioritize the future. Nearly everybody is available except for J.J. Weatherholt and Jordan Walker, as expected. Possible trade pieces now include Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson, Riley O'Brien, Ivan Herrera, Pedro Pajes, and Jimmy Cooks. Catching depth makes St. Louis one of the more interesting teams to watch this season because this deadline, because those two of the last three names I mentioned, Ivan Herrera and Pedro Paez, are two young catchers that they have.
They're willing to trade Riley O'Brien?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's 31. That's why. I mean, he's pre-arb next year. He's 31 years old. I mean, that guy throws 100 miles an hour. He might be a ticking time bomb, maybe with his. I mean, Riley O'Brien in this bullpen would be pretty legit with all the other arms they got.
Other important notes.
Let me ask you this. I just thought about this. Well, Riley O'Brien's not a lefty, though, right? He's a righty?
I believe so.
I think he is. I mean, I'd have to double check. I can't remember all these guys' arms. Yeah, he's a righty.
They got two of them.
Foul.
No, I'm already on 3 from yesterday.
They carried over. Foul.
Well, I got like 8 yesterday.
Foul. Riley O'Brien, 38. He is a righty. I mean, like, because I was thinking if he'd be like a more higher leverage arm, you'd have control of him. Is it worth like getting rid of one of your better bullpen arms that are rentals? Jason Adams / Adrian Morejon. If you picked up a Riley O'Brien, I don't know. Maybe. It's interesting to me. But he's been okay. He's got a 3.50 ERA. I know he throws really hard. He's got 26 saves. He's blown a couple, including the one to Nick Castellanos earlier in the year. I find it interesting that they'd be willing to part ways with him. Other important notes, though.
We've talked mostly about Robbie Ray, so we'll just skip that. Red Sox need infield help again.
Because Curtis Mead's out.
Yes, Curtis Mead's fractured wrist has Boston shopping again. Targets including Zach Neto, Otto Lopez, Xavier Edwards, Jeremy Pena, and C.J. Abrams. There's a big step up on that list.
Yeah, I would say that those two at the bottom are a little bit better than the guys. I mean, Otto Lopez was an all-star, but the two in Miami. I mean, what are they going to have? How are they going to get those guys? What's their prospect capital look like? I could see the Red Sox getting C.J. Abrams. I think Washington might be dumb enough to trade him.
All right, let's give a likelihood. Let's burn through some of these and get a likelihood before we go to break. Clay Holmes to the Dodgers, can start immediately, pitch in October, move to the bullpen if everyone gets healthy.
I would say that's probably high if they don't want to pay for Tarek Skubal's asking price.
Hunter Green situation, 50-50 chance of being traded. The latest says now Cincinnati has informed the team that he is no longer available. Surprising?
No, I bet you they did the same thing that AJ Preller did. Cast the wide net, see if like, hey, anybody going to give us this for him? No, we're not. All right, cool. He's not available then.
Nationals exploring extensions. Instead of trading Foster Griffin, Washington is discussing an extension. C.J. Abrams remains technically available, but executives believe the asking price is too high. Which one do you think is more likely, that Griffin gets an extension or Abrams gets traded?
I think Abrams is more likely to get traded. I think that they need to flip it. They
Yes.
should extend Abrams and trade Griffin.
But
This is the greatest season of Foster Griffin's life. That he played 3 years in Japan. Thanks for the memories. Ship him off and like add to this core of Abrams and Wood if they're smart.
Cubs, last one. Cubs go reportedly all in on starting pitching. They have checked in on Tarek Skubal, Clay Holmes, Robbie Ray, and Emerson Hancock, who Seattle has said that they will be most likely trading. Which one do you think is most likely to go to Chicago? Skubal, Holmes, Ray.
Not Skubal.
Hancock.
I think they get like a Robbie Ray. I think they can get Robbie Ray. I
can tell you right now, they're not trading Shota Imanaga.
Probably not. No.
He is on the mound right now, taking on the New York Yankees.
Wow. I don't think he was going to be traded. He's like one of the only guys that they can actually like throw out there. Some interesting stuff with that, with the trade deadline. We'll keep you updated on what's going on with Freddie Peralta, since he will not be starting today. We'll also get you updated on some important scores and notes around Major League Baseball that affect the Padres, as they got a pretty important game tonight against the Giants. Speak more about that when we come back. Another fun week of motorsports. Alex Bowman announced he'll retire from full-time NASCAR competition after the 2027 season, saying injuries, family, and life beyond racing influenced his decision. Meanwhile, Corey Heim keeps making history, winning the Brickyard 400 to earn his second Cup Series victory despite only being a part-time driver. Joey Logano says NASCAR will be battling Heim for years to come, and it's hard to disagree. In Formula One, Lando Norris picked up a huge victory at Hungarian Grand Prix, while championship leader Kimi Antonelli extended his points lead heading into the summer break. One generation is becoming a step away, while another is already taking over. Let's start in NASCAR. Alex Bowman announced retirement plans, while Corey Heim keeps rewriting NASCAR history. This week was featured major headlines both on and off the track, starting with Alex Bowman, who announced he'll retire from full-time NASCAR Cup Series competition after the 2027 season, citing health concerns, family priorities, and a desire to step away while he is still in his prime. Meanwhile, Corey Heim continued his remarkable rise by winning the prestigious Brickyard 400, becoming one of the sport's brightest young stars. Formula One also wrapped up the first half of the season with Lando Norris claiming a victory in Hungary. So let's start with the NASCAR Cup Series. Alex Bowman is going to retire.
Yeah, Alex Bowman's going to be retiring after next season, not this season. There was one of the biggest off-track stories that came out this week, on Thursday, when Hendrick Motorsports announced that Bowman will return for one final full-time season before retiring. Bowman said his decision is not performance-related, it is instead years of injuries, including multiple concussions. He had to sit out, I believe it was most of last year, because of concussions. He's broken his back. A frightening vertigo episode earlier this season, which also kept him out of the car, have convinced him that it's time to prioritize his long-term health. The 33-year-old also wants to focus on starting a family with fiancée Chloe Henderson, and admitted the emotional toll of racing every weekend has become difficult to manage. This departure leaves one of NASCAR's premier rides open, with Trackhouse prospect Connor Zilisch already viewed as the leading candidate to fill his place in the number 48 car, which also got some news this weekend as Jimmy Johnson plans his final race to be next year's Daytona 500. Hendrick Motorsports is going to allow him to use that number 48 that Alex Bowman currently uses. So what does Bowman do now?
Another car up there. I'm sure Hendrick can go get another number somewhere.
I believe they still own number 25. I believe, unless they just do a straight up number swap, 48 for 84 for a week. I'm not sure, but that's a February 2027 problem right now.
Yeah, Hendrick Motorsports is see how many numbers that they own. They might have some. I would imagine they probably have some alternates. Maybe
I think it's not necessarily like that. You really only own the numbers that you run. Again, I think 25 has been an alternate of theirs for years. That drivers like Brad Keselowski's driven the number 25 when he first started. So I'm not sure which numbers they do own. They used to own 88. That's Trackhouse now. They started building their brand with number 17. That's Roush now. So I'm not sure which numbers they have licensing for that aren't the numbers that they already have.
Yeah, they have it on here. So I guess the likely alternate, according to the reports, is they are going to give Bowman the 25. So Bowman in that race will race the 25. It's historically been one of their numbers.
Yes.
But they don't have any alternates because NASCAR does not allow any alternates. You only get 4 full-time cars. But that's going to be interesting to see next spring, obviously, for Jimmy Johnson. I think for a lot of us here in San Diego that like the ties to Jimmy. And him being back in the 48 is going to be special.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's going to be at Daytona doing that will be very remarkable. But let's talk about the current chase. Corey Heim gets another victory, captures the Brickyard 400, continues to make history. The 2311 Racing driver captured the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, earning his second Cup Series victory of the season, despite running only a part-time schedule. Heim used a perfectly timed restart to take the lead from co-owner Danny Hamlin, who was just over 30 laps remaining and never looked back. Logano praised Heim afterwards, saying NASCAR will be racing against him for years to come. Pretty remarkable season he is having, even though he's on a part-time schedule.
Yeah, part-time schedule, Cup Truck Series champion last year. He's gotten 2 race wins in a very, very short amount of time. And they're 2 very, very big race wins as well. The Brickyard 400 is a crown jewel staple race for NASCAR, and also here in San Diego to get his first career win in a never done before.
And for the Bill House Studios, we know how. All right, let's take a look at what's going on in baseball today. Obviously, important games to pay attention to if you're a San Diego Padres fan. One that just got underway at Wrigley. It's the Yankees and the Cubs. Padres obviously need the Yankees to win that one. If you want to try to track down the Cubs, they had a missed opportunity yesterday. The Cubs have a pretty solid lead over both Philly, Arizona, and of course the Padres. But you're kind of hoping that's a spot that you're still can be able to obtain. It's more out in the distance, if anything else.
Nobody needs the Yankees to win ever.
Yeah, sometimes you do. It's okay.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yes.
No.
If the Yankees beat a team and that led to the Padres going to the playoffs, wouldn't you want the Yankees to win, or would you rather have the Yankees lose and then not make the playoffs?
Involve the Yankees winning.
Let me ask you this: if the Yankees beat this National League team on the last day of the year, and that led to the Mets going to the playoffs, would you root for the Yankees?
It would involve the Yankees winning.
You would rather have the Yankees lose and miss the playoffs than have the Yankees win and make the playoffs.
You know I'm being sarcastic.
I don't know about that with your hate watching of the Yankees.
Sarcastic.
I would have to evaluate. Yeah, stop being selfish, Frank. I agree. I agree with one in the chat. Anyway, you would hope the Yankees would beat the Cubs today. Pirates and Reds, another important one today. Hoping the Reds win. They already have determined that they're going to be sellers. Hunter Green, who is now no longer available, will be out there. You know Hunter Green's got a 7 ERA? Did you know that? No wonder he's not available.
They're like with the way people are talking about him.
Yeah. Cardinals and Blue Jays. We've been big Blue Jays fans the last couple of weeks. Must be playing a lot of the National League teams. Dylan Cease on the mound today at 4:00 as the Blue Jays take on the Cardinals, battle the Birds. Instead of the battle of the Bulls, battle of the Birds. Diamondbacks and Guardians. You're hoping the Guardians win tonight. Bybee on the mound for the Guardians. Tanner Bybee.
Yankee lineup has Ahmed Rosario batting 3rd.
That team's not good. I'm telling you, the American League, the Yankees are not good.
Boys, I could tell you from experience, having seen Ahmed Rosario play every single day for a good 5 years, he ain't your number 3 hitter.
You want to look at their lineup today? Paul Goldschmidt's leading off for the Yankees today.
That's something they've been doing.
I know,
especially against lefties.
Paul Goldschmidt and Ben Rice, solid year. Ahmed Rosario. They got.
Why are they batting Ben Rice?
They got freaking Jason Dominguez batting cleanup, hitting 232 with a 661 OPS. I'm looking at their team, and I'm not going to say the Padres offense has been better than these guys, but I look at this team. It's Goldschmidt, Rice, Rosario, Dominguez, Trent Grisham, who came back down to San Diego Padres level. Trent Grisham, 216 average, 702 OPS. Anthony Volpe, Spencer Jones. I don't know who their catcher is. Who's their catcher? Sanchez? Ali Sanchez. And then you have their second baseman and Jose Caballero. That's the New York Yankees.
Ahmed Rosario this season in 167 at bats, hitting 234, 9 homers, 27 RBIs. Ben Rice,
Volpe, he's 6, still getting big league starts.
Ben Rice in 391 at bats is hitting 269 with 31 home runs and 73 RBIs. Yet he's batting 2nd and not 3 or 4.
Hey, Will Warren, everybody's favorite starting pitcher for the Yankees, is starting today. Sure that will work out well.
Why is
Anyway, let's go back and stay focused here. Other games that matter to the Padres today: Mets and Marlins. Mets beat the Marlins yesterday. I think they did.
I believe they did. If I remember right.
We're all rooting for the Mets today, Frank. Does that make you feel better?
Sorry.
You know what? It doesn't, because he wants them to lose now. So now he can't even root for the Mets.
They did beat the Marlins yesterday.
Braves need to beat the Nationals. How about James Wood costing them a game yesterday?
They've won 4 of their last 5.
Who? The Mets? I'm telling you, man, they're gonna sneak back in this thing. Did you see James Wood costing the Nationals a game yesterday?
I did, yes.
So I'll never see that get posted. Padres fans. You need the Braves to win that tonight. Other games, I think that's basically it. Royals and Rockies, nobody cares. Rangers and Astros is fun, but that has nothing to do with the Padres. Brewers and Angels don't care. Tigers and A's don't care. Red Sox, Dodgers don't care. Twins, Mariners don't care. So those are the games you got to care about today. Nats, Braves, Marlins, Mets, Diamondbacks, Guardians, Cardinals, Blue Jays, Pirates, Reds, Yankees, Cubs. Some of those teams have already announced that they're going to sell, though. So
yeah,
take that for what it's worth. But that's kind of the latest. Again, we're in the bottom of the first inning in Chicago for Yankees and Cubs. The game has already gotten underway. Padres play tonight. This is like a 6:45 start because they're on Apple TV Plus. Coming up later on the show, we are going to get to Heidi Watney is going to join us, who is the sideline reporter for Apple TV Plus for tonight's game. We'll get an update from her on some of the news and notes of this ball game. Later on, we'll have Drake Hills on with us as well. But let's get to the phones. Brandon in Carlsbad wants to weigh in. What's going on, Brandon? Happy Friday.
Hey, boys, let's have a day, huh? You know, the good old Padres just give us enough to keep hanging on, to keep building that old faith muscle. You know, Frank, let's go Metropolitans, huh? Let's just go. Let's do this one. One of these years, you know, I know they can't play each other in the World Series, but, hey, you know, I feel you, dude. There's always some kind of heartache and pain going on, but it's always backwashed by hope. So with that being said, you guys, I just wanted to check in, send you some love. I'm always listening, even if I can't call in. I know something's going to happen on the trade deadline. I just don't know what. I haven't been doing enough research, but I've been watching, and kind of like back in the day, you'll like this one, Braden, even though they're not our teams anymore, but my mom used to call it the cardiac chargers because they would give you enough, whether in the game or in the season or mathematically, to keep hanging on just to get your heart rate up. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the Padres right now. You know, there's a little cardiac aspect to it. But that's it, boys. Much love. Let's enjoy this day. It's hot, sunny. By the way, you guys, the ocean is almost 80 degrees. For those of you that love the ocean, go get in, get some. Love you guys. God bless. Go Padres.
Appreciate it, Brandon. Thanks again for calling. I might have to do that after practice today because it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. 3 o'clock. At least we get the coastal breeze. I don't know how the East County schools do it. By the way, I do want to give a shout out to. We haven't seen him in our YouTube chat in a while, but shout out to Scratch, the Cougar, at Steel Canyon. Did you see the brand new stadium? They got a brand new stadium out there at Steel.
I saw that picture.
I love
that
it.
You retweeted. Yes,
I love it. As somebody that has broadcasted games at Steel Canyon, who has coached against Steel Canyon a handful of times. Now, obviously, you know, we're gonna need a better picture next time. I mean, why are we doing the vertical? It's throwing me off. I gotta look at it like this to try to see the new stadium that they have. But they have added a press box, an actual press box at Steel Canyon, that's got like a shooting deck on top. It looks like they added a couple more, a light tower right behind it. But then they had like the little bleachers, and then they had this like hill that was just like this dirt hill. And they have now connected the bleachers to the top where the press box is and have added an actual stadium at Steel Canyon. I'm sure it's been a long time in the works, but it looks great. It looks great, and I'm excited to see that. I'm sure the PPR will do something on that when they come the first game at Steel. But it looks awesome. So congratulations to Steel Canyon football. Love the fact that they're like adding stands over there, for the football stadium, and it looks nice. It looks great. So I love that. I forgot to announce it, or maybe it is today. I gotta see. I think it's today. today might be the day.
You can let us know on the other side of the break here.
Today is the day that I think El Cap does their like running through downtown Lakeside. You know about that tradition?
No.
I'll tell you about that when we come back. And we also hear from Craig Stammen, Braden Surprenant Show, Standing Sermon Sports Station 97 through the Fan. 11:41 on a Friday. We lost Billy Ray Smith this week, and I didn't talk a lot about it yesterday. And he was the type. I didn't get to know Billy Ray that well, but in fact I never met him, but I used to listen to him all the time growing up with him and Scott and all that stuff, and he was so fun to hear. I mean, you could hear the happiness and the positivity in his voice all the time. He played for the Chargers before I was really around. But the one thing that I like to do on Fridays, and I think about it every single time, and I'll do it even more, is every time that Scott and BR did their Friday show, they would always freak out about Friday. And you could always hear like how stoked he was and like the positive, but you could hear the energy in his voice when he would do it. It's Friday. It was the funniest, coolest thing. It would get you excited for the weekend. They used to do that all the time, and Billy Ray would do it all the time. So that's when I do like the It's Friday thing, and I've done it a couple of times. I just think back of like listening in radio as a kid here in town, listen to sports talk radio. And thinking of Billy Ray Smith yelling, "It's Friday." It was super cool. We lost him too soon. So obviously our condolences to his family, to his wife and his daughter, I'm pretty sure. And it's a tough loss for the San Diego community. It was such a great, you hear the energy and the positivity on the airwaves when he was doing his show. A lot of the guys that work here were able to work with him at some point in time back in the day. I was unable to do that. I got into radio after he was after he had gotten out of radio. So, but I know he meant a lot to a lot of people. I saw the posts. I thought they were all very touching. I thought they were great. But again, another one of the guys, part of my, I would say childhood, but teenage years listening to the radio back in the day. I've talked about how I listened to Darren Smith as a kid, listened to Coach, listened to, Scott and BR. I listened to all those guys. I mean, even a lot of everybody. Some of the people I've gotten to work with here that are no longer working here, and some other people that, maybe some people, I've liked some of these guys, disliked, but I've listened to almost everybody that has done sports talk radio since 2000. I used to listen to, and it's what got me into this and got me excited to do this, and got me to a point where I wanted to do this job, and a lot of these guys have put forward and given me an opportunity when I was a college kid to come in and shadow and stuff like that. So it's always tough, I think, for a lot of fans to when we lose somebody like that. So that's my tribute to Billy Ray Smith. I love doing the Friday thing. I remember that when he was on the radio and they were doing their, I think they were at Afternoon Drive at that point when they were doing that, or at least when I was listening to them, more so than the morning. They moved around all the time. That station had guys all over the place, but lost too soon at age 64. So he'll be missed here in this town. Big impact to this town from a sports radio perspective, from a sports perspective, and also a hell of a football player, for the Chargers and for Arkansas. And but more importantly, it just seemed like he was such a great guy. So that's my tribute to him that I'll do on Fridays. Because I remember that's the biggest one memory I have, especially when it comes to Billy Ray Smith. So gone too soon. And we didn't really talk about it yesterday, obviously, but I wanted to get that out there. Because, again, like as much as, there's a lot of people that like our show. There's a lot of people that don't like our show. But, the one thing that I do have in common, a lot of local people here, I grew up listening to the same people you did. And it's an honor each and every day that we get to hit the airwaves and do it alongside a lot of the people I listened to when I was a kid. I was in high school. With everybody and everybody, and I haven't really said it too much, but like everybody that I've worked with here and everybody that I used to listen to growing up, I mean, guys that are no longer on the radio that do podcasts, and some other ones that were at a competing station, and the ones that I've learned a little bit from everybody growing up here in San Diego. And so I hope when I do my show, you can and you listen, you can hear a little bit of everybody that has done shows before me and kind of led the path and have taken the time to help me get to this spot. So I really appreciate all of that. I like working with all these guys. I like the fact that I've been able to work alongside and against a lot of the men and women that have been in sports talk radio and the sports media here. It's truly a great day every single time. Every single time. I mean, it's cool to be a part of this. As somebody that's been a fan of all of these personalities for so long, and I've talked about it before. I mean, I used to go into high school, like you would listen to. I listened to Woods on the way to high school when he was on the Mikey Show and he was doing the Incorporator, and he was the guy that was like calling different entities and had to use all these different code words like they do with Jesse. That was fun. I remember Ben Higgins and Craig Elston doing the pre and post. I remember guys like Teddy Mendenhall doing the pre and post. It was a blessing to be able to work with some of these guys as well. I remember my first day in the press box. It was like, you talk about first day in the clubhouse where you get to see all these people that, all these pros, and you have to like keep it cool. That was me the first day in the press box. I was like, that's AJ Cassaville. That's it. And then now, like it's kind of weird now because I get to work with him, but that's it's really awesome for me to be able to do this. And I get along with some of these people. I don't get along with some, but we try to keep it professional as possible. But everybody that is a lot of the radio personnel that have come before me, they've helped shape the way that I do shows. That's everybody. I mean, that's including a lot of people that I think get some flack on social media for unnecessary reasons. But they might be listening. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. But a lot of these sports media members in town have had a big impact on my sports media career because they are the ones who I listen to. And I don't want to age anybody, but that's how I came up and listening to sports talk radio with my aunt and my dad, and obviously a lot of Chargers talk, a lot of Padres stuff. But when things like this happen, I just start going through the memories of tuning in to stations and what got my first love of sports talk radio. So it's an honor to be able to be amongst these guys. And so, for me being in town, I think it might be a little bit different than Frank, obviously growing up in New York. But for me, it's like the coolest job ever to be able to talk sports with you guys, but also be around a lot of the people I grew up inspiring, trying to be.
Yeah, for me, it's same story, just different names. I mean, you have Ben Higgins, I have Mike Francesa, you have BR, I've got Christopher Russo. So I mean, it's more or less the exact same story, just plug in different names. I mean, I grew up listening to WFAN in the back seat of my grandfather's car. I would sneak out of class early. Like I took orchestra in elementary school, and I always said that orchestra started at 1 when it actually started at 2. So I could set up the music room with my orchestra teacher, who was a guy, and we would listen to the open of Mike and the Mad Dog for the first hour of just sitting there doing nothing. So very similar path, and I'm sure much like you, in the 6 years I've been doing this now, going on 7, I have not worked a single day in those last 7 years. This has been a treat from start to finish, and it's because of guys like Billy Ray that we get to do this.
Yeah, I set the path, and again, I know there's the funny thing is, this is what it's funny to me is, I'll see some I will see some comments about. It's funny that the personalities that people like and dislike, and meanwhile we all work together, and sure, a lot of people have their differences in this industry, but for the most part we get along. And the thing is, it's you either are working against this person, and then eventually you might work with them, but I always find it interesting that some people go that dislike me, but like all the same people that I grew up listening to that I like, and I like try to do my show like them because this is how I started getting into sports talk radio. So there is a comment in the YouTube chat, and I appreciate Juan passing along. I'm glad that his 17-year-old nephew loves our show and wants to start a sports podcast. That's why, we have a lot of people that want to get in the sports media industry. I try to be as available as possible to have guys shadow and girls and people that want to be it's a tough business. And, I try to help as many of these people as I possibly can because it's such a great thing to do. And, but all the anybody from 2000 on, I mean, even like guys like Philly Billy Warndell, Jim Rome. I mean, the guys that I used to hear all the time back in the day, I try to take a little bit of each, and I've learned a lot from a lot of these people, regardless if they know who I am or not. So it's pretty cool. I know, I didn't get to know Billy Ray too much, but when I talk about the Friday thing, it's the first thing that pops in my head, and this kind of derailed the show a little bit, but I just hope that when you guys listen to our show that maybe you can get a sense of like some of the people that we grew up listening are the same people that you grew up listening to. And it's great to be a part of this. It's great to be a part of the deal. And like Darren let me shadow one of his shows when I was in college. He didn't have to do that. It was great. Mike Costa, the same thing. It was a project that I did in college that I had to do is interview a sports talk radio host. And even though I was in Texas, I came back home and I wanted to interview the people here, and they took the time to do that, which is awesome. So appreciate all of that. It's always cool to be able to work with these guys when I can. They did a great. They've really passed the torch to us, and we hope we can continue that. We have a couple of minutes. I do want to mention this. I think this is one of the coolest things in high school football in San Diego. And I saw the image. I saved it because I wanted to remind people about this. But we gave the shout out to Steele because football starts today in high school football. I gave the shout out to Steele Canyon. They got a brand new football stadium, which is awesome. It looks great. And I love that. But also today is the day in Lakeside. For the Lakeside residents out there and the people in East County that want to support local high school football and traditions. Tonight is the night, and I love this. I love that Ron Berner does this with his team. This is so like Americana, small-town football. You get it up there with Coach Damon Baldwin at Ramona. You get it with Ron Berner at El Cap. But El Cap every year on their first day of practice, they suit up. They got helmets on. I hope they don't run in their cleats. I don't think they do. But they suit up in gear, and they do a lap through through Main Street on Lakeside underneath the Lakeside sign, and the people come out and they have like the Lakeside police or sheriff like kind of escort them. But we're showing the picture right now on YouTube. It's kind of like a great bring the community together. So tonight at 6:00, the El Cap Vaqueros football team, all levels, are going to do their little jog through Lakeside. And people come out and cheer them on and everything like that. So if you're in the Lakeside area, if you want to support local high school and your local high school out there in El Cap, they're doing that tonight at 6:00, first day of practice. I think it's like one of the coolest things ever. So wanted to give Coach Berner and the El Cap Vaqueros a shout out on that. When we come back in the noon lunchtime hour, we got a lot to get to, including what Craig Stammen said on Ben and Woods this morning. Noon lunchtime hour on the Fan on a Friday. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. Static goes over at Sports Station 97.3, The Fan. All right. I do want to shout out Chula Vista High School got a brand new stadium as well. I think they finally got turf. It's taken a long time for a lot of the South Bay schools to get the approval from their district to get turf, but I think they finally got their brand new stadium. I think most stadiums now in San Diego for high school sports have turf again. I understand why high schools have turf because, fees of water and all that stuff. And it's probably a lot easier to maintain. And by the time you're like 4 weeks into a football season and all the teams that need to use those fields think it's just absolutely destroyed. But I know. I'd much rather play on grass. I like playing on grass. I like coaching on grass. We played at Snapdragon Stadium a couple years ago for the CI Championship game. Oh, so nice. So nice being on grass. So great. So, anyway. Shout out to, again, El Cap's doing their run through Lakeside today, which is the coolest thing. They'll do that tonight at 6. Probably when it's like a way cooler in Lakeside at 6 o'clock than it is right now. Brand new stadium for Steel Canyon. Chula Vista got a brand new stadium. Pretty great. Love the high school football updates, and today's the first day of high school football. That's why I've brought it up. Let's get back into Padres talk, and then we're going to be a little bit later on our sports thread, but we're going to get to that coming up. We got a training camp report to get to. We got a preview Padres and Giants. We got San Diego FC talk. I mean, we are cruising through today's show, and so we got still a lot to get to before we pass it along to Gwen and Chris. Manager's report, which is brought to you by SDCCU. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. Craig Stammen, manager of the Padres, was on with Bennett Woods this morning, like he is every other Friday. And the first thing he talked about was putting together a 5-game winning streak that the Padres had over the weekend into Wednesday. Here's what Craig Stammen had to say about that.
Yeah, it was much needed, and it was much needed at the end of that road trip, too. You always wonder how, what kind of energy the guys will have after long road trips and, long stretches without days off and stuff like that. And especially going to Miami where they have a lot of family and friends that are, Latino players, guys from Dominican, Venezuela, a lot of family come to Miami, and those guys played great. They played great in front of their friends and family, and we're able to, salvage that road trip, make it a 500 road trip, and give us some momentum coming back home.
Craig Stammen on with the morning show talking about a lot of different things, but the next thing that they asked about him was how did they come up with the idea of pitching chaos?
Yeah, I think, we try to plan it way out ahead of time, and we realize there's a lost cause. It changes on the daily basis. So, we meet daily before the game, we meet daily after the game and talk about our pitching plan. It kind of came about, with everybody, all of us kind of talking together, front office, pitching group, myself, other people in the organization, just to all right, how can we maximize our pitching staff in its current state? How can we get the best out of them? Is it the traditional 5-man rotation? Is it just kind of waiting and seeing and trying to predict, when they're, going to give up a run and try to get them out ahead of time? Or, should we schedule it a little bit more? Should we make it a little bit more specific? So all those things we discussed and kind of came up with this way we're doing it for now. And, hopefully at some point, we get back to that normal, 5-man rotation. But at this point, the way it is, it's worked all right a couple games. We're kind of getting to the point now where we're running out of bodies, fresh arms. But, hopefully when Walker pitches and Michael pitches, that kind of, gives those guys a breather, and then we can get back at it again. But it's definitely a changing thing daily, nightly, in game. It's a lot of work on our end, but it's also, fun to, try to help us win games in a creative manner.
Craig Stammen talking about the pitching chaos. I mean, honestly, this is what you want out of your organization, right? I mean, you want your coaching staff to do this. You want the front office. You want them to be like, all right, well, this is what we have. Due to injuries, we have to think outside the box here instead of doing the exact same thing over and over again. I like the fact that they are thinking outside the box and not going with the approach of we've always done things like this, or baseball's always done things like this. I think the Padres have found the strategy that maximizes the talent that they currently have until they get reinforcements back. I appreciate it. I like this. That's why I don't mind it. And yesterday, the Padres didn't win yesterday, but I think the pitching, the pitching chaos led to Randy Vasquez saving the bullpen yesterday that you can now deploy for the next 3 days. And it sounds like, what Bradley Rodriguez starting today? Is that what Sam said last night?
Yes, it is Bradley Rodriguez versus Wisenhunt, yes.
Bradley Rodriguez. Now, have they allowed Bradley to go more than just one inning? I don't think they have. Maybe they did.
They
Like,
might
barely.
have. I'm not sure.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but are they going to have him as an opener? Or are they going to let him just go until? Well, they're not going to let him go until his arm falls off. But are they going to try to do another inning? That's what makes it interesting about this. Pitching chaos is it's not like a predictable opener situation where it's like, okay, let me get through this reliever, and then we know the guy's going to get the bulk of the innings. Does anybody really know who's coming out second? It's hard to prepare for. The difficult part of it, though, is planning this out. I would imagine, worried about everybody's arms, pitch count, putting together a whole series. I mean, here's the other thing, too. They're using this in 16 games in 16 days right now with no off days. How does Craig Stammen and the staff manage this type of rotation?
Yeah, for sure. I think, if we've played college baseball or maybe even summer ball or something like that, we've all experienced this. I did this. I remember playing a Legion baseball tournament, double elimination tournament. We had all of our pitchers were the infielders, and we just kind of rotated around the infield and took turns pitching, every 2 innings, and we kind of just went through the tournament like that. And that's kind of what this kind of premise is that same thing, or college baseball where, you have your probably, like a place like Dayton, you have 2 good pitchers or 3 good pitchers that you can rely on. They start the weekend games, and then they also come back in the midweek and pitch a couple innings just to help you win those midweek games. The only problem with the major league season is you play every day and we don't have those days off, but, that makes it more difficult. So that's the challenge with it. And especially in this part of our season where we've got 26 out of 27 days of games, we don't have that off day in there that helps us kind of reset the pitching staff. That off day after Miami was very helpful. Now we're on a stretch of 16 where we don't get that off day. It'll make it a little bit more difficult. But after that, we have some more off days, might make it a little easier. But it's a challenge either way.
It is a challenge. I mean, it does come with some challenges. I mean, obviously, it's just, and I think Chris brought this up on the roundtable. I thought it was spot on. It doesn't really matter what strategy you do. You still need the pitchers to pitch well, because it doesn't really matter what you run. If they don't pitch well, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. It's not going to matter. So as long as they pitch well, there's going to be a lot of different moving parts to this. But the best recipe for success is going out there and throwing strikes. They asked Craig Stammen if he could tell AJ Preller what he needs help with in his ball club. What would it be? What is he asking AJ for in terms of the trade deadline?
We talk about that stuff very often, not even during the trade deadline. How can we maximize our roster? What options do we have? Those types of things. And, I leave a lot of that up to him. I give my opinion. It's not like a strong opinion. I trust what he and the front office are doing with the roster, and then we kind of go from there. But, it's clear, we're running a pitching staff that's, we're running it just a little bit differently than what, we're normally accustomed to. And, would we rather have 5 starters roll out there that can go 6-7 innings? Yeah, that's, obvious. But are we figuring out a way to win this way too? And that's kind of where it goes. Yeah, you could change the roster, but does it help you win or not? And I think, that's his decision-making to make, me to help him talk through it and be someone that's in his corner and can give him what my thoughts or my opinion. And then, we all collectively make a good decision on what's best for our team.
Luis Rengifo has been a nice little pickup for the San Diego Padres. It's funny, I saw a excerpt from one of the articles on social media about the Padres and how much money they're going to have. And in trying to find that article specifically, I found an older article about the trade deadline, and this was on June 4th or something like that, from Ken Rosenthal. And in this article on June 4th, it talked about the Brewers. And about the Brewers, it mentioned, they talked about Bryce Terang and everything like that. But then it also went on to mention Luis Rengifo. And what it mentioned about Luis Rengifo was the fact that he was struggling in Milwaukee. And here's what the experts said. It was like wondering when the Brewers might promote shortstop Cooper Pratt and or third baseman Jet Williams. June 16th, the first date teams can trade free agents in the first year of contracts without their consent, is the day to keep in mind. And it goes, Luis Rengifo, who the Brewers signed to a one-year, $3.5 million free agent deal, likely has minimal trade value. He's batting .204, the .531 OPS. But rather than release him, the Brewers surely would prefer to find a taker that might give them either a measure of financial relief or a low-level prospect in return. Williams could replace Rengifo at third. Pratt, who is hitting respectively at AAA, could become the starter. Yada, 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 yada. Well, it's a good thing that they just decided to part ways with Luis Rengifo. He's been a nice little pickup for the Padres. And they didn't have to trade for him. But he was hitting .204, the .531 OPS on June 4th in Milwaukee. He has now done exceptionally better than that. Who knows if he can keep it up? New lease on life. But here's Craig Stammen talking about Luis Rengifo's contributions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice when guys like that step up. Samad Taylor did the same thing a little earlier. Rengifo's doing that right now, providing a spark for our offense, just for our team in general. He's got a very good attitude. He's always smiling. He's always energetic. So, a switch hitter also is a huge asset to our team right now. And him being able to swing it well from both sides of the plate, which isn't always the case for a switch hitter, has been, very crucial for us in this little stretch and good stretch of winning games.
Luis Rengifo, I mentioned what his numbers were on June 4th when Ken Rosenthal wrote that article. 204 average, 531 OPS. Luis Rengifo finished his Brewers tenure in 57 games, hitting 205 with a 534 OPS. He has now raised his average to 237 and a 237 average with a 623 OPS, which is a lot better than it was. But with the Padres, 385 batting average in 12 games with a 590 slug, a 1044 OPS. Obviously, it'd be very difficult to maintain those numbers. This is the best he has ever been in his career. Maybe not, average. Well, average-wise, yeah. But he's putting together. He's starting to trend back to what he was with the Angels, which was a 250 hitter and just around a 700 OPS player. That's a good ad for the Padres with just picking him up on the scrap heap. I think he's done a great job. I thought Randy Vasquez did a great job yesterday in relief, 4 2/3 innings. How did Craig Stammen evaluate how Randy Vasquez has been doing?
We've kind of decided with Randy we wanted to see him kind of in this hybrid role out of the pen and see if we can, unlock something with him and maybe find a new role for him to help him have even more success than what he has as a traditional starting pitcher. I think yesterday, out of necessity, we he had to go a little longer than really we want in that role, but it was just probably a nature of the beast of us, the way we're running the pitching staff right now, and he stepped up and did a great job. But I think the games before that, previously, the one in Miami and in Atlanta where he had little shorter stints, and even Kansas City where 3 innings was kind of the max that we wanted for him, to be able to bring him back a little sooner and use him a little bit more often. That's kind of what we envisioned for him. That could change, after this last outing, he went 4 2/3 and 67 pitches. So he's going to need, probably 4 days off before he pitches again. So, all that'll be on the table when we get to that day. But, the crazy part about this is we don't know who's starting in 4 days. So it could be him. It could be somebody else.
Could be Bragley Rodriguez, who starts tonight for the San Diego Padres. Here's Craig Stammen talking about Bragley getting the ball to start the game tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's also a big piece of this too. Is and it doesn't allow the other teams to really prepare. Unless they're guessing on who we have available and who can pitch. How they can game plan for our pitching staff. So I think as this goes further along, teams will probably get a picture of how we're doing it. But, in this little time period right now, we have that advantage of being a little stealthier, with who we're going to use.
Craig Stanman on the Manager's Report today is brought to you by SDCCU. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. We're going to get to more football talk coming up in the next segment or so. We got the preview of the Padres game. We're going to talk about San Diego FC. We got to get to Heidi Watney and Drake Hills joining us in the 1 o'clock hour as well. Still a lot to get to. I complained to you about this the other day, and I just saw another post about this. This is my old man yells at clouds moment. You ready for this? I do not understand. I don't get it.
Okay.
I don't get it at all.
What are we not getting?
I don't understand these high school football photo shoots all over town. I don't get it. I know a lot of kids. The kids obviously love it. It's not my thing. I think it looks really weird, and some of them some look very dumb. I'm just, it's not, I'm going to be like Principal Skinner. It's not me that's out of touch. It's the kids that are wrong. But I've seen a lot of these. Like, I don't want to name schools, but like I saw one school in town was like shooting this at a Denny's, and they're all like in full gear. They're all in full gear. And I'm like, nobody's going to a Denny's in full gear, all looking at the same menu. Or they're in like a liquor store. It's like, okay, well, that's already kind of odd. And it's like, maybe we shouldn't have our kids wearing full pads in a liquor store. Now, they put themselves in front of the refrigerator that had all the sodas, which I think is a lot better. There's some kid passed out with like, Cheetos on them and stuff. What are we doing? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I've seen tons of these. This is what I get as a high school football coach following high school football accounts to see like who's good and all that other stuff. I'm getting inundated with these photo shoots. I know that the kids I coach will probably be doing the same thing eventually. I will still think it's dumb. But you know what? I don't get it. I saw a school. Now, I did see a school in Texas did their photo shoot at at a Whataburger. And they're sitting outside Whataburger. One of them did it at Popeyes. They're like, some kid's like putting his gloves on as he's about to dive into a chicken leg at Popeyes. I just don't understand. But I got to... some of them, if you do it on campus, whatever. But, here's 7 of us in the back of a truck in full uniform with helmets and cleats, and I don't get it. Plus, by the way, here's the other thing. It doesn't make any sense. They're all wearing their helmets. Aside from, the jersey number, which who knows if that's the jersey number they're going to wear, you don't see anybody's face. They'll have the visors on. I don't get it. I know it's for the gram. I mean, is this what, it's what Gen Z's in? Oh, I guess this is Gen Alpha. Does this make you look cool or something? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Do we got to do... You know what? We should totally troll this. Do it ourselves. Just, post up at a gas station. Do a photo shoot with, microphones. Make everything look like a podcast studio or a radio station. I don't understand it. Now, I will say this.
I'm sure the local 7-Eleven will be will be totally cool with us just guerrilla filming in there.
I did see this one. Did you see that? I will mention that. Sam Pasquale. This is out on social media now. Sam Pasquale's high school football team did a photo shoot for the season at the stadium of their rival high school, Escondido High School. They did it at Escondido High School.
Talk about guerrilla filming.
I just saw the post about it. They literally, it's Sam Pasquale. This is the post from Gridiron 619 on Instagram. Sam Pasquale shoots media day at rival Escondido High School. Is that like a troll thing, or is their high school did Escondido let them do it because because Sam Pasquale is doing renovations or something? I don't mind that. That one's a little tough. I tell you that one's a little bit tougher than maybe being at a Denny's or something. I don't get it. This is not. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is that's not something I would do, and it's funny the stuff that kids do these days for Instagram. I've seen some funny ones though. I mean, I hope these schools are trolling each other, but there is the Popeyes, the Whataburger. Some of them are kind of funny, but if you're going to do that and you play us, and if you're going to shoot your media day at your rival school's stadium, You better win the game. Like this point, like that game's got. If you're Escondido, you got to be circling that game if they play each other. I don't know what I would do if St. Augustine took photos at Cathedral for their media day while I was in high school. That probably would have irritated me, or Torrey Pines or something like that. I'd been like, "What's this? What is going on?" Oh man, kids these days.
If you're
That's the 31-year-old that I am. This is my old man yells at cloud moment. I'm totally owning that. I'm totally owning the old man yells at clouds. I think it's ridiculous.
if you're gonna do something this dumb, you have to realize it's dumb. So just be dumb. That's all you have to do. Is don't try to look cool. Just be dumb. That's all you got to do. If you do one, it's at the school. Doing it at the school, that you understand a little bit more. You can act a little tougher. You puff your chest out a little bit. But doing it at Popeyes and just like, hey, this is kind of ridiculous. We're in our full football uniform
and wearing the helmet
at Popeyes. This is kind of dumb, so we're just going to lean into the fact that this is kind of dumb. Then yes, then it works. But if you're at Popeyes and taking it seriously in a very unserious situation,
you want to do it at school, fine. You want to do it by the beach, scenic stuff in the background. You want to make sure you're not. They used to do it at Qualcomm, which was cool, like team photos. Yeah, do it without your helmet on. The whole helmet on and like posing and like a player in places that are not playing doesn't make any sense to me.
No, that's stupid.
It doesn't make any sense to me. This is, I blame the colleges. This is what you get. This is the photo shoots. Everybody wants the photo shoots. Photo shoot at Buc-ee's would go hard. I'd approve that one. And you know what? I bet you if you searched it, you'd find one.
Future San Diego Padres Spencer Jones.
Wow. Fourth homer of the year. Will Warren throwing a shutout. Let's go. Costa Cannon product, Spencer Jones. Hopefully he starts figuring it out over there in New York.
They're not in New York. They're in Chicago.
He plays in New York.
I know that, but they're in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I want him to be able to figure it out for the whole year, not just only playing in Chicago. That would kind of be counterproductive for a team that only plays at Wrigley once every 2 years. Unless he becomes a Cub, which you would also hate to see. All right, we're well over break. When we come back, we got our training camp update. Embrace the MLB Trade Deadline is less than a week away. It's a week from Monday. It's August 3rd. And the biggest question isn't just who gets traded. It's what those moves say about each team's ambition. The Dodgers are in their own category, World Series or bust. Teams like the Yankees, Braves, Brewers, and Rays are contenders in their leagues, but they have to decide whether now is the time to go all in. Padres are one of the most fascinating teams, of course. They have the talent to compete, but the big question is whether they need another frontline star to become a real October threat. Meanwhile, teams like the Mets and Giants have to decide whether to sell after disappointing seasons. The trade deadline doesn't just reshape rosters, it reveals which teams truly believe they can win a championship. Every year leading up to the MLB trade deadline, we spend weeks asking the same questions. Who should buy? Who should sell? Who needs pitching? Who needs offense? But sometimes the most important question isn't what move will a team make? It's what does the move tell us about how the team sees itself? That's the idea behind MLB's ambition tiers on MLB.com heading into the August 3rd deadline, because every trade tells a story. A team trading for an ace is saying we believe this is our year. A team adding a bullpen arm is saying we're close, but we're not going all in. And a team selling while sitting near contention is telling everyone we don't think this roster is good enough. And with so many teams still fighting for playoff spots, this deadline could reveal which franchises truly believe they belong in October. Let's start with tier number 1, World Series or bust.
World Series or bust, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I think that's basically it.
Tier 2, contending, contending sustainably. The Yankees, Brewers, Rays, and Braves. These are franchises that expect to be competitive every single year. The Yankees might have been in tier 1 if not for injuries, especially the uncertainty surrounding Aaron Judge. But if Judge returns healthy, New York immediately becomes one of the most dangerous teams in baseball. Atlanta are interesting because they have experience making aggressive deadline moves. Alex Anthopoulos has shown he will trade prospects if he believes a championship window is open. The Brewers and Rays are fascinating because they think because they have reached this position without spending like traditional contenders. So the big question is, well, number one, do they finally push all of their chips into the middle? And two, with you being a part owner of the Atlanta Braves,
That's
have
right.
you
Shares.
thrown your hat into the ring here with Alex Anthopoulos?
These four teams in particular, I don't think the Yankees have interesting enough prospects to make too many significant moves. The more we look into this, because of the fact that they were interested in Mason Miller and Adrian Morejon, the more I just go, I don't really like what they have to offer. And especially if they're not going to offer George Lombard Jr. I mean, they have the 26th best farm system in baseball for a reason. I mean, they have a couple of good players here and there, but notice the names they keep dangling out there. They're players that aren't very good. It's like Will Warren is not very good. I mean, even a team like the Padres that needs starting pitching, it would be a mistake to get a guy like Will Warren. He's not that great. He's not knock your socks off. Spencer Jones, Jason Dominguez. I mean, these are guys that the Yankees don't want anymore. And if they're going to make any type of significant trade, they're going to have to give up a Dax Kilby. They're going to have to give up a George Lombard Jr. I see they add at the fringes. I don't think they have the capital to potentially actually add what they need to add. The Brewers, until they go all in, I will refuse to believe that they will ever go all in. They haven't shown that once over the last handful of years. They've made the playoffs, I think, 7 out of the last 8 years, and they've gotten bumped by the Dodgers in almost every single one of them, or they have failed to advance in the playoffs. It's because they take away from their team more than they add to their team at the deadline. The Rays are always a little cautious, right? They don't have too many resources. I don't think they go all in, but they'll definitely add at the deadline. And the Braves have the ability to go all in, and I think Atlanta does after the last couple of seasons of being disappointing due to injuries, plus the fact that they never really know if they're going to have a full team going in October or not. They always get some rough injuries here and there, but that gets us to tier 3 and teams that can make noise in October. I mean, it's like the Phillies and the Cubs who have, they're both, if they combine teams, they'd be really good. Cubs have no pitching. Phillies have no offense. Red Sox are just on a resurgence right now. But, I mean, everybody wanted that entire front office fired about a month ago. Mm-hmm. The Guardians are always around, right? And Seattle takes another big loss on Monday, and their schedule is difficult, and it's going to get even more difficult, and they got no offense. And the thing that they have is pitching, and their pitching is not really helping them out right now. I mean, this is the most interesting group of the bunch.
We spoke about it on Monday's show about
Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. 97 through the Fans Trade Deadline coverage presented by City Cruises Live. Experiences done different. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3. The Fans. Still a lot to get to today on our show. Very quickly, we're going to get to our AFC reports for NFL training camp day. Our NFL training camp report, Miami, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and Kansas City on the docket today in the AFC. We'll talk about the NFC in just a little bit. But, Frank, take it away. Turn your mic on.
Yeah, that's
always helps.
Great
It
start
always
for
helps.
the day. Let's start in Miami, where rookie wide receiver Caleb Douglas continues to turn heads. The third-round pick had arguably his best practice of camp with 3 highlight catches, including a touchdown during red zone work. Meanwhile, backup quarterback Malik Willis continues to show off his athleticism, making plays through the air and on the ground. The Dolphins suddenly have some young offensive weapons that could make some noise. What's more important for NFL contenders, finding young players through the draft or developing the young talent already on the roster?
I think they're both important in their own way, but if you could develop young talent not in the draft, I think it gives you a lot more depth as a team. And here's the other thing too. It's not like college football where everybody leaves every year. You could literally you could actually develop and keep guys in your system, keep guys in your program, and find players from within. I think it saves you a lot of money not having to go through the draft. You're not always guaranteed to have high picks in the draft. where you can find some elite playmakers, but it definitely adds to the depth. I think it's very important to develop, in order to win championships. I mean, every contender needs day 2 and day 3 picks to contribute because that's your special teams, a third of your squad, highly important.
The Cincinnati Bengals slowed things down on Friday with a walkthrough to manage workload after opening camp with 4 straight practices. But one of the biggest stories this week has been that tight end Eric All Jr., who returned from an ACL injury, and says getting hit by getting hit by a moped in Greece actually helped build his confidence after rehab. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's young defensive players have been making plays against Joe Burrow throughout camp. If the Bengals are going to get back to the Super Bowl, does the defense have to improve more than the offense? And should getting hit by a moped in a foreign country help boost injury recovery?
I don't know. Anybody going to ask Harrison Bader about that? Whoa! Talk about a story in San Francisco. Are you kidding me? Didn't get to that today. Harrison Bader, look out, buddy. But yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals, no, the moped thing, that's kind of an odd story. I think he's trying to protect himself from maybe something else that he might have done. But
well, no, he said it helped him get better, really feel more confident after.
Rebuild his confidence after getting hit by a moped in Greece. Sure, man. The defense has to step up a little bit. I think from an offensive firepower standpoint, obviously the Bengals don't have a problem with their offense in terms of skill guys and quarterback. They do have problems with their offensive line. And that leads to Burrow not staying healthy. And, they have explosive games, but the problem is, like, if they can't keep him standing upright, it's not going to matter. So I think a little bit of both for this. I think the defense has to, get a lot better. They didn't get Trey Hendrickson back. And this offensive line has been the biggest problem for them because they spent all their money on receivers and their quarterback. So I understand that the offense, from an ability standpoint, is probably their best asset. But if you can't keep the quarterback upright, it's not going to matter. So I think probably a little bit of both.
One of the best stories out of camp belongs to...
This is our Colts. This is our team. We bleed blue.
Cornerback Charvarius Ward. Just 7 months ago, he was seriously considering retirement after a personal tragedy and concussion issues. Today, he's one of the best players on the field and says he's found a new purpose playing for his family. How much does veteran leadership actually matter in an NFL locker room?
It does. It does matter. I mean, young players follow the veterans. They set the culture. They set the leadership. They set the direction of the franchise. You need the experience because a lot of young guys come in thinking they're like the greatest thing that ever happened to football, and sometimes they're not. And veterans get them through a lot of the grind that is playing in a full NFL season. So I think Ward's story gives teammates some perspective. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you still need talent, but I do think that there is a culture that they set in having veterans on the team. You want a little bit of both. You want the athleticism and the talent from the young guys, but you also want that leadership and that place for the young guys to go to get experience. And the best way to have that is with players on the team. The best teams in football are usually teams that are not just well coached, but ones that are led and run by the players. And when the players have good leadership, the teams usually have good seasons, and that happens with veterans. So I think it does matter for the Indianapolis Colts and for the veterans. On to the AFC West.
Yep. Last one. Andy Reid appears to be making a subtle but significant change to the Chiefs' offense. Patrick Mahomes spent much more time under center Thursday after playing primarily from the shotgun last season. The move could maximize new running back Kenneth Walker III and open up more dangerous play action plans. Should Kansas City evolve its offense or stick with what made Patrick Mahomes great?
I think you should always keep evolving on offense. I think you should always put wrinkles in. I think you should always be improving the team that you currently have. And I think a lot of defense have adjusted to, this style of offense. And that's what happens all the time. You get a brand new, not to say that they're running anything that's like brand new scheme-wise, but you get something that's new. Takes a little bit of time for defenses to figure out how to stop it. And once they do, you have to make that adjustment. I mean, the professional sports is all about adjustments. And I think for Kansas City, you evolve it a little bit, and I think it would just unlock some even more special plays for the talent that they have in Kansas City. And there's nobody better person to do that than Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid has been an offensive guru even since his days in Philadelphia. So if there's a team that's going to be able to improve from just what they have already been doing and having success, it's the Eagles. It's Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's huge to be able to do it. I mean, teams have done it in the past, and the good teams are constantly changing and trying to improve. So I think Kansas City should do that. When we come back, we'll get to the training camp report on the NFC. We will also talk a little bit about Padres and Giants tonight, coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Heidi Watney will join us as well. Still a lot to get to. Only 4 segments left on the Braden Surprenant Show. We got Guns N' Roses tickets to give away as well in the 1 o'clock hour. Stay tuned for that as we continue. 12:43 on a Friday. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. Standing Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. We are hauling through today's show. We are flying. It's flying by. Flying by. Talk about the NFL. Heidi Watney will join us in the next hour talking about tonight's Padres and Giants game on Apple TV Plus. So we will get to some San Diego FC talk in the next hour as well, and dive into our own look at the rest of the weekend and keep you updated on what else is going on throughout Major League Baseball. But we talked about the AFC in our NFL training camp report for today. Let's talk about the NFC, focusing on New York, Detroit, Carolina, and Los Angeles today.
Right back to it. And Mike immediately on. So that works. Abdul Carter.
Yay, we did it this time.
Abdul Carter looked every bit like a top 3 pick on Thursday, living in the backfield and even beating Pro Bowl left tackle Andrew Thomas multiple times during practice. At the same time, Malik Neighbors says he's feeling great despite still recovering from surgery, while Kayvon Thibodeau also continues to flash on defense. What is a faster way to rebuild an NFL team? A franchise quarterback or an elite defensive line?
I would say an elite defensive line is going to get you back in it. I think you got to build from the trenches out, and I think Abdul Carter is a good pickup for the Giants in the draft last year. The thing is like I think you got to get the line situated first, and then you go get the quarterback. Like, you want to be able to get, the recipe for success for NFL teams is building the trenches out and then getting that quarterback, so you have those 3 or 4, 5 years, whatever it may be, where he can go make a run and he's got assets all around him and you protect him, but also the defense protects him as well. So I think the best way to become competitive is controlling that defensive line. They can't win if they don't score. So I think defense travels. I think it's changes the game. It's going to make you a lot more competitive. I mean, if you have nobody protecting your great quarterback, then it doesn't really matter. He's not going to be able to be a great quarterback. So I'd rather have the elite defense and an average quarterback than an elite quarterback and a defense that's not very good. So I think it starts with the D-line. You kind of need both, which is hard to get, but your best chance of winning a Super Bowl, building out the lines, and then adding that quarterback for a 4 or 5 year run with the lines that you have assembled. That's usually the best recipe for success.
The Detroit Lions have 2 major storylines unfolding at camp currently. Safety Kirby Joseph remains optimistic he will return early this season after missing most of last season with a knee injury. Meanwhile, star running back Jahmyr Gibbs continues his apparent hold-in while seeking a contract extension, although teammates say it hasn't become a distraction. Should NFL teams pay running backs early or make them prove it year after year?
I don't think you should pay running backs anymore. Period. I mean, most of the league doesn't have just one guy. They have running back by committee. They are, they're a luxury that a lot of teams can't afford, and they get banged up, but use them a lot. I mean, you want to have a good running game. Again, a lot of it comes from the offensive line, but I don't think you should pay running backs ever. I mean, I know Jahmyr Gibbs is going to hold out for more money. You can't afford to give him more money. Not in a salary cap. It's like paying. I mean, it's like paying for elite closers. You need other areas that are more important on your team than just the running back, and you can address the run game with offensive linemen. I don't think you could give Jahmyr Gibbs a big payday because it's going to take away from something else that makes you really good.
The injury bug continues to bite the Carolina Panthers. Rookie receiver Chris Brazzell is expected to miss the season after knee surgery. Second-year edge rusher Nick Scoutrin is out with a torn ACL, and the Panthers have already had several key players leave practice early in camp. It's been a brutal start to the summer. Can injuries derail a season before they even begin?
Absolutely. That happens a lot. That happens a lot in the NFL. I don't think it's going to derail the Panthers yet because of some of the weapons they have, but that can absolutely derail the start of the season. The only difference now in the NFL is the season is so long that you might be able to get some of these guys back and go on a little bit of a run late. But yeah, your season could be over before it even starts. With a lot of this is why teams are afraid of preseason games. This is why they're trying to get through camp healthy. That's definitely the case at all levels of football. I mean, you're hoping through these next 13 days. At least at the high school perspective, before you can scrimmage, and including the scrimmage, you want everybody healthy for these, this week and a half, 2 weeks, because it doesn't do you any good if you got injured guys. It's like spring training where some guys might get some nicks and dings. I mean, you can have some catastrophic injuries in the National Football League in training camp.
Yep, absolutely. The Rams are already planning for one of the most unique challenges of the season, a Week 1 trip to Melbourne, Australia. Sean McVay says they've finalized their travel plans and are trying to keep players on a normal routine as possible, while the Niners are reportedly planning to arrive nearly a week early. When it comes to international games, what is the most important? Getting there early to adjust or keeping your normal routine?
I think you got to get there early and adjust to the time, so then you can get into your normal weekly routine. I mean, you can't fly there super late. It's never going to work. And you have jet lag. I think the teams that have had the most success have practiced out there for a week. I think that's probably better. I really do. If I was because everybody has to navigate this at certain levels. But in the NFL, it's such a challenge because you're going to way different time zones on the other side of the world, flying internationally. I just think you want to try to spend as much time there as possible. I mean, you have the whole week off the next week, but you should probably get out there as early as possible, get the week of practice in, and pretend like you're just playing there and adjust to the time. To me, that seems like the philosophy that would be the best. But this is what hurts. Like the NFL, I get what the NFL is doing with the international games, trying to grow the game to a larger audience. They're trying to build football players in other countries. They're trying to establish youth leagues, everything like that. But I mean, you're asking your players to do a lot. Flying to Australia, flying to Brazil, flying to London and all these other places.
Mexico City.
I mean, but some of them have time zones that aren't too crazy. Flying to Mexico City is tough because you play at altitude, but that's still not crazy of a trip in comparison to flying to Germany and all these European countries and Australia and things like that. So I think as much as NFL teams thrive on consistency, this is a different experience that you have to handle differently. At least they're getting it done in week 1.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can recover the rest of the year.
Rapid fire. Which rookie has helped himself the most this week in training camp?
Which rookie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know.
Which contract hold-ins is currently the biggest storyline?
I don't know how many there are there. I don't think if you're the Lions, you could really balk and sign Jahmyr Gibbs to a long-term deal. It just doesn't work out for running backs.
Entering the preseason, which team has the most to prove going into the year?
We talked about the Ravens yesterday. I think they're kind of on that list. I think the Rams now with higher expectations are another team that, they obviously have to prove it now because of the offseason. I think the Patriots have to prove that they could get back to what, can they do this on a more consistent basis and not just like it was a run in the postseason. And I think the Chargers got to prove it. I mean, the AFC West is solid, but, the Chiefs have come back down to the pack a little bit. The Broncos are looking to improve a little bit more. But, with Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, I think the Chargers are in a position where they have to kind of show that they can put together a really good year. They haven't done that in the postseason with Harbaugh or anybody else that they have had as a head coach. So I think they're a team that has a little bit of pressure. Dallas Cowboys always have pressure going in. Can Dak Prescott actually lead this team? Are they good enough with everything that they did in the offseason to improve the defense? Can Dallas finally can they finally get back to the NFC Championship game that they haven't been to since, I was born? It's been a long time. So I think a lot of those teams are probably entering with the most pressure.
Which coach do you trust most to adapt this season?
Andy Reid. He's adapted before. I think he's going to find a way to make Kansas City as dominant as they used to be, or at least try to.
And then finally here, we got about a minute left before a break. What is the biggest overreaction from the first week of training camp?
Biggest overreaction? Picking Super Bowl picks. Probably for ESPN's first take, talking about the Cowboys' Super Bowl odds every day this week.
Everyone's saying, "Oh my God, the highlight catches that are being made."
I think there's a lot of that. I think they overhype. I think they overhype practice success. Like you said, the catches. I think plays. I think nobody's at their full strength right now. I think the overhype of quarterbacks throwing picks in the first. There's a lot that actually happens in football practice that a lot of reporters miss as being legit. Oh, the offense beat the defense today based on the scoring. It's you don't know what they're working on.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's different. Final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show. When we come back, Heidi Watney will join us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. We'll preview Padres and Giants. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. Setting us over on Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. We talked about the trade coverage earlier on the show, but our baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years guaranteed. Xfinity. Imagine that. Getting ready now to have our first guest of the day. It's our first guest of the last hour to give us a preview of Padres and Giants here in San Diego. She is in town with Apple TV Plus, coming back to where she called home for a little bit, not only as a college student at the University of San Diego. She also spent some time at KUSI here in town very briefly before moving her way up the leaderboard. Went on to Nesson, got to work with Don Arcillo a little bit with the Red Sox, worked for MLB Network for a little bit as well, was the LA Galaxy sideline reporter. She has done it all and has done a great job in every aspect of her reporting, now with Apple TV Plus for the last couple of years. She will be on the sidelines today for Padres and Giants. 6:45 start on Apple TV Plus tonight, Game 2 of the 4-game series. Her name is Heidi Watney. She joins us on the Braden Surprenant Show on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. Heidi, thanks for taking some time today. We appreciate you coming on.
Hey, my pleasure. All the connections to San Diego. I love it here. I practically grew up here. My mom's family all lives down here.
Well, it's great to have you back. As I do some play-by-play at USD, so it's cool to have a Torero alumni on. And for just your experience of being here in San Diego, and cutting your teeth in this town. How cool is it to be back from that perspective? I mean, about all the memories and stuff when you fly into Lindbergh Field.
Well, I love every time I come to San Diego, and we still visit a lot because my grandparents lived here for until they passed away, and my mom's family still lives here. So I come at least twice a year just for fun. But I love coming to work games here in San Diego because Petco Park is so beautiful. It's right downtown. It's such a vibrant scene down here around the games, and this ballpark has really become a destination for fans. There's so much energy and excitement and enthusiasm, and I love the vibe down here. But San Diego's my favorite place. I was just talking to actually Detroit Tigers manager AJ Hinch, and he agrees that we love San Diego.
So it's hard not to love this place. I know a lot of people that when they come out, when we host all-star games and other MLB events, everybody goes, why can't we have this here every year?
Every year.
Yeah, exactly. There's, of course, that famous clip of Bryce Harper in the all-star game here saying he loves it here. He got married here. So it's no surprise that obviously a lot of the Padres like being here, don't want to get traded at the deadline. There's a lot of interesting storylines coming into this weekend. Obviously, the Giants are a team that has a lot of assets that they're looking to sell. Padres probably more on the buying side than the selling side, but a lot of interesting storylines for you guys to cover today. What's the biggest one that you're paying attention to going into tonight's game for Game 2 of the series?
Well, the trade deadline is the overwhelming theme of the weekend, and these two teams are going to be right in the thick of it. One, San Diego is always going to be involved because A.J. Preller isn't one to just sit by and watch trades happen without getting involved. And I think that's one of his gifts, is he's so good at identifying not just his own team's needs, but what other teams need to get the trade across the finish line, right? Because you're not going to fleece another team. All of these front offices are smart. So you need to work a deal that they're going to be happy with and you're going to be happy with. And so I think that's one of his gifts, is like, okay, I don't have what you need, but this third team has it, and they have something we could give them, and so let's figure this out. So that's always the exciting thing about being around San Diego at this time of year, from my perspective. And then the Giants, the Giants had a disappointing season. But they have talent on their roster. It just hasn't come together for them, or didn't come together early enough for sure. So what pieces are moved, what the vibe and the chemistry is like in their clubhouse. I mean, it's been a real growth year for San Francisco, with Tony Vitello coming in and Buster Posey taking over a year ago as the head front office guy, and an entirely new coaching staff, including a former Padre and Jace Tingler, and Ron Washington, who has a lot of experience across the league, and experience with a lot of these players here in San Diego as well. And there was so much new in San Francisco that it's one of those things where they really needed spring training to just go perfectly. And I think I was just talking to someone about this yesterday in their dugout. They needed to. The WBC threw a monkey wrench into a lot of people's plans, and I know we're halfway through the season now, so using that as an excuse is not really that valid anymore. But it did put a lot of teams behind the eight ball when it came to starting the season, especially if there was a lot of turnover on their roster, because you lost half your team for half of spring training. And the Giants had so much turnover, and I think it took a long time to figure out who they were, and it's too little too late, and now they've got to part with, impending free agents and stuff. So those storylines are going to be fascinating to watch over the course of the entire weekend, but really, that's all ramping up today.
I do want to ask a follow-up on that, and maybe that's the big difference, but there's a lot of parallels between the Padres and the Giants, except for the fact of the standings, if you will. Brand new manager for Craig Stammen, another guy that has never done it before, period. Vitello at least had experience at the University of Tennessee, but he had never done it at a professional level. A lot of veterans on both teams that have big contracts, maybe some question marks here and there in terms of maybe, pitching more so from the starting side for the Padres, maybe more bullpen for the Giants. What's been the difference then as both teams navigated this for the Padres with their brand new staff and manager and the Giants with their brand new staff and manager? Is it just the new faces compared to, maybe differences in prep? What have you gotten out of both sides as you talk to two managers that are in their first years?
You're absolutely right with the parallels, and both teams have a ton of talent. I would give the edge to the Padres in terms of just talent on the roster. I know they're lacking on the pitching side, and they've had a lot of injuries, and they could use really 3 starting pitchers, but, fingers crossed for at least 1 or 2 at this trade deadline. But maybe they can pair up. I kept saying yesterday afternoon during BP, I can't wait for Robbie Ray to get scratched, walk across the field, and start for the Padres against the Giants. Wouldn't that be entertaining? Didn't happen, though. That's right. The Padres, the core of their roster remained intact. So while it is a new manager and he's feeling his way out, and he's been inside big league clubhouses before, and he's been in a front office. So I think that experience helped him a lot in terms of knowing what's expected of the position, what kind of manager he wanted to be, how to command a clubhouse. I think with Tony Vitello, he's been wildly successful in the college ranks, and I think he is a great manager and going to be a great manager. But there is a difference with collegiate players and professional players. There is a difference with handling the media in Tennessee, where they show up because the college program is so good, and or it's a lot of young college students trying to get into the business, versus a market like San Francisco, where you're going to be questioned, where the team's going to be questioned, where sometimes there's people that are going to show up that are going to really be irksome because they don't really seem to care about baseball, but they care about the news. So it's I think Tony Vitello's baptism by fire is a lot more than Craig Stammen, who had major league experience more as a player, obviously, than a manager. But I think that, there's definitely a learning curve there for both in where the line and where the edge is. But I think this Padres team is just so talented, and we've seen over the last month what they're able to do offensively, right? So if they can shore up, and then their bullpen is so good, they could trade a reliever for a starter and still be good. So I think San Diego is going to be in good shape come Monday at 6:05 p.m. But between now and then, I'll be interested, Eastern, of course. Between now and then, I'd be interested to see what happens.
Talking with sideline reporter for Apple TV Plus, Heidi Watney, will be on the sidelines in the dugouts today at Petco Park for Padres and Giants. Joining us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. Chaos pitching. I'm sure you've had to do a lot of research on that as of the last week or so, with the Padres kind of employing that over the weekend and now continuing it into this weekend. Bradley Rodriguez will get the start for the Padres. Based on your conversations with both teams as you get prepared for the broadcast tonight. I mean, what have both teams said about this chaos pitching? And, is this something that you think the Padres might stick with for the next couple of weeks or so until they get back to normal?
Yeah, I've had quite a bit of chaos pitching experience because covering the postseason for so many years as an embedded reporter with MLB Network, you see that employed a lot. If a team has, one or two really good starters and maybe not the best third, or they have three good starters and, you occasionally need a fourth in the postseason, and they feel like it's better to go to have a bullpen game, a reliever game, chaos pitching, whatever. The Tigers used it in 2024 when they were making an improbable run for the postseason, but had traded away starters at the deadline thinking they weren't going to be in contention. So I've seen it used in short bursts. It can be very, very effective in the postseason and in short bursts. I don't think it's going to be as effective over 2 months of the season, and the postseason adds an additional month to that. The relievers' arms will just fall off at some point. But even if it's used, for a fifth spot in the rotation, that even can work. But the Padres, and look, it's getting them right now. They know that being hot heading into the deadline is going to get the attention of the fan base, get the attention of the ownership, get the attention of the front office. And I think AJ Preller knows more than just to look at the last week in time. But the last couple of weeks heading into the deadline can make or break for teams. So I think it's great what they're doing. And they need, in the end, come end of September, you're going to need every win you can get. So if you can do this to limp into a trade deadline where you can get some reinforcements, and then the reinforcements can help until hopefully you get, Pivetta or Musgrove back, then that's awesome for the Padres. But I don't think it's a long-term solution.
Obviously, this is not the only game you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing a lot of different games throughout the final stretch of the MLB season. You've covered Major League Baseball for a long time. What are you most excited for in this final stretch of the season? These last 50 or something games around Major League Baseball that you can't wait to see play out?
I think the most exciting thing is outside of the LA Dodgers, there's a lot of question marks about who's going to be in it. Whose teams that were surging early are slumping now. Teams that were slumping early are starting to get hot. There's a lot of teams still in the thick of it. And I know the additional wild card kind of adds to that. And some people say kind of waters down the postseason. But the great thing about it, the argument against that, is if your team gets into the postseason and they get hot, they have a chance. Baseball is a marathon sport, right? But even the team like the Dodgers treats it as the marathon setting up the sprint, right? So Shohei Ohtani, they're going to slow play the knee thing because they can. They have the depth to do it. They're going to slow play any guy coming back from injury because all they care about is the sprint of October. So it's interesting. You almost need two different rosters, one for the marathon, one for the sprint. But for a lot of teams, and I think the Padres are one of those, if you can just get to the postseason with your offense clicking, then the first, what happened the first 2 months of the season with Manny Machado hitting barely but over the Mendoza line and Fernando Tatis Jr., actually, he's had a great season, just the power hadn't been there. But, if you can get the guys rolling the way they've been rolling the last month and you can continue to build that into October, then, the sky's the limit for what this team can do. But that's the great thing about baseball. And so just watching these races shake out with where everything is in the wild card standings, I think it's going to be the most interesting to me. And I think just seeing which one of these teams, which one of these dark horses are going to be the Rangers in 2023 where they went to the postseason and nobody expected it. Rangers and Diamondbacks, that was, you would ask me at the trade deadline in 23 who's going to be in the World Series. I didn't have either one of those teams. So that's the fun part about baseball.
Last thing for you, Heidi, and I think it's just we had a lot of people in our YouTube chat ask it. Going back to your time at MLB Network, you did get to host Quick Pitch, which seems like a daunting task on the East Coast in terms of timing. As a fellow broadcaster, it's always interests me how you're able to put a lot of that stuff together, especially with games still going on. What was your experience with Quick Pitch? And for a lot of people that were fans of you on Quick Pitch, how difficult is it to put that show together every single day?
There's a great team at MLB Network, and that's one of the unheralded things about the network. The people behind the scenes are phenomenal. And Quick Pitch is an interesting beast in itself, and I hosted it for 10 years, so I would know. But a lot of the producers are still there working on the show that were there when I was there. So they're still grinding away at it. You wake up first thing in the morning and you're looking at the rundown, you're reading the research packet. We get a research packet with a one sheet on every game, every morning. It takes about an hour to get through. I used to do it on the elliptical. You're talking to producers at 11 in the morning, at 12, at 1, as things happen. Oh my gosh, did you see this in this game? We got to get that in. Or, I think we should do a lead-in on this topic. And it's evolved slightly. They do more gimmicky lead-ins than although I did some too, because it's fun to do. Like, it can't be kind of cheesy lead-in every now and then. But I was really, really involved with talking with the producers all day long about, here's some lead-ins, here's some big stories we need to hit. And that was me. I always wanted to lead in with big stories, the big story of the day, whether it's a pitching matchup or someone's on an 18-game hitting streak or someone's in an 0-for-17 slump that's a big-name player, or Bryce Harper made a comment about the Phillies and then Don Mattingly answered, and, what's going on there, and, digging in behind the scenes of the big stories. And then you get there and write the show and watch all the games and sit in the bullpen. That was my favorite part, is just like sitting and talking baseball in the bullpen with Joe Girardi and Buck Showalter and Albert Pujols and all these, Harold Reynolds and Dan Plesac and all these Hall of Fame players that come through. I got to know Ken Griffey Jr. pretty well just from sitting in the bullpen and chatting with him during MLB Network work shifts. I mean, like, Ken Griffey Jr. is freaking amazing. So it's just like sitting there and watching the games unfold while writing the show and tweaking things. And, we have to make sure we get that highlight in. And, did you see that? And we need to highlight this. And we need this page too. And it's a really great collaborative effort to put together what is the best highlight show in the business, in my opinion. And it still is. It's fantastic. I watch it every night. And then when I hosted it, we stayed live until all the games were over, because something happens, if something changes, and this is pre-pitch clock. So I saw the sun rising on the East Coast many a night. I mean, the San Diego Padres used to play 19-inning games on the regular, and I was on the East Coast watching that. But yeah, no, it's, I don't know, there's a pride of ownership of it, of just putting together a great show and making sure that we didn't miss a single piece of important news in the world of baseball in the day, because that was the show of record. And I love it, and I still think it's a fantastic show.
That's got to be fun, the adrenaline rush of that, and you're watching the sunrise, and then it's like, all right, well, time to take a nap, and then get ready to do it again at 10 in the morning the next day on a day game.
Right. Well, I didn't have to do the day game because I was still back on the night shift the next day. But yeah, for the players who have to do day games after those really late ones, I feel for them. I mean, anyone who's worked in Major League Baseball knows what sleep deprivation feels like. So, yeah,
especially through the grind of the season. Heidi, thanks again for the time. We appreciate it. Have a good call tonight. We'll be watching. And welcome back to San Diego. It's good to have you back.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Heidi Watney joining us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking. It's better. I had to ask the quick pitch question because it's amazing to me. Like, sometimes I'm sitting there like, they had to record like all these other ones already, and they're waiting for like the one game on the West Coast to finish so they can knock out that highlight and then be done for the day, and then let the thing re-roll for every hour for all night long. That's got to be like such a long wait time.
It is
on the East Coast.
As someone who was in charge of getting those highlights for CBS Sports Radio, I could tell you it is.
That's like
we
those.
Hate it when West Coast teams go into extra innings, especially.
The college basketball guys are all on the East Coast too, and they have to like grind through an Aztec game that tips off at 8:00 Pacific time, and they're just like passed out. It's a fun grind of working in sports. So you want to work in sports, huh? You want to
get ready to stay up late.
Get ready to stay up late. When we come back, we'll talk Padres and Giants, San Diego season action. Drake Hills will join us at the end of the show. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. NFL training camp officially here. Biggest story, not just football, but everything that's on the line going into training camp for these NFL teams. Defending champions Seattle Seahawks are trying to become the NFL's first repeat champion in over a decade, but They've lost some key players and coaches. Meanwhile, 5 teams are holding quarterback competitions, including Cleveland with Shedeur Sanders, Atlanta with Michael Penix Jr. and Tua Tagovailoa, Las Vegas with Kirk Cousins battling a first-round draft pick, rookie and Fernando Mendoza. Added new coaches, stars returning from injury like Patrick Mahomes and Nick Bosa, and veteran free agents still waiting for contracts. Training camp is loaded with storylines. Football is finally back, and the race to week 1 officially begins. Frank, football is officially back. You got to see the training camps out there. Teams will be starting training camp throughout the week. I'm looking forward to finally seeing some NFL football. And last Sunday was the last Sunday without football for the remainder of the rest of the year. So should be good to have a lot of good football back. But, the biggest storylines entering camp, starting with Seattle as being a team that's trying to be the first team to repeat in a long time.
Yeah, it will not be easy for them. Seattle's lost their offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, along with several key contributors from last year's championship roster, including Kenneth Walker III, Reek Wolin, and Kobe Bryant. Head coach Mike McDonald now has to prove that last season was not just a one-year success story. His new offensive coordinator, Brian Fleury, takes control over the offense. So Seattle, they have a very, very tall task ahead of them and a lot of new names and a lot of new places. Yeah, and meanwhile, like just down the coast, the Rams, in that division, right? Got to be able to make it through your division if you're thinking about repeating as a Super Bowl champion. The Rams entering camp with enormous expectations. They traded for Myles Garrett and Trent McDuffie. They added Jalen Watson. The Rams have assembled one of the most talented rosters and talented defenses to pair with an offense that features Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum. Oh, and by the way, Aaron Donald could be coming back. Sean McVay mentioned he hasn't made his decision yet. Aaron Donald hasn't made his decision about maybe coming back out of retirement for one more Super Bowl run. But Aaron Donald comes back to this team. The Rams are not only the team to beat in the NFC West, they could be the team to beat in the NFC and even in the NFL. Yeah, and Aaron Donald's held workouts there over the last couple of weeks, so he is very much getting into football shape and getting ready, seeing if he can handle another full season grind after being away these last couple of years. That would be a huge get for the Rams. Wonder how much of an impact he'll make, having been on the sidelines for these last few years. But still, a name like Aaron Donald coming back to that defensive line to pair with Myles Garrett, that is absolutely massive for the Rams. Quarterback battles, fresh starts, quarterback competitions will headline training camp around the league. In Atlanta, you got Michael Penix Jr. and Tua Tagovailoa battling for the Falcons' job. In Cleveland, all eyes remain on Shedeur Sanders as he competes with Deshaun Watson for the Browns' future under center. Raiders will determine whether veteran Kirk Cousins keeps rookie Fernando Mendoza on the bench, while the Vikings have an intriguing battle between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. Arizona also enters camp with Jacoby Brissett, Gardner Minshew, and rookie Carson Beck, all competing for the Cardinals starting job. Elsewhere, there's several veterans begin fresh starts with new teams. But let's just talk about the quarterbacks for a second. These are major quarterback battles by a lot of, I would say, middle-of-the-road quarterbacks that are good enough to win you games in the postseason. I don't necessarily know a lot of these guys are Super Bowl caliber quarterbacks or franchise caliber quarterbacks, but you have competition in a lot of areas. Competition does, breed success, but a lot of tough battles in Atlanta, Cleveland, Las Vegas, Arizona, and even Minnesota. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Kyler Murray is going to win that job. No, I don't think so. And Michael Penix Jr., he's lined up as the quarterback of the future for the Atlanta Falcons, and then you bring in Tua Tagovailoa after what happened with him in Miami. I don't see how Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel really stay away from Deshaun Watson just based on take the job away from Deshaun Watson based off of Watson's contract and what Cleveland gave up for him. You're going to have to give Deshaun Watson a chance. So I think that would be the case there. I don't see a world where Fernando Mendoza wins the starting job over Kirk Cousins. I'm one of those guys where you keep guy on the bench for a year, get up to speed, sit under the learning tree for a year. Especially with that team and the talent that they have. You're going to get him killed in his first year. Let Kirk Cousins get killed. And then if you need to put him into action later in the season, you can.
But as you mentioned, I think it's a lot. But most of the good quarterbacks in the NFL kind of waited around a little bit to kind of get their bearing. $125 on a Friday. Drake Hills will join us next to talk about San Diego FC. They're on the road in Minnesota after the All-Star game was this week. Did you watch the All-Star game?
I did not, but I did see that the MLS All-Stars beat the Liga MX All-Stars 4-3.
Hang the banner. Chalk one up. All right, Padres get ready for the Giants this weekend. I think a lot of people are emotionally putting out there they have to win all 3 games and they have to do this, they have to do that. I mean, we talked about it earlier on our show. They can't afford to really fall back to what they were. They're a game above 500. They need to use this opportunity to take care of business against the Giants and rack up a couple more wins before the trade deadline on Monday. Not to say it's going to change whether they're buying or selling. I think they have already made up their plan of what they're going to do. But they got to stay within striking distance. They can't they have climbed their way back into a good spot. They can't let Pittsburgh, Miami, Washington, St. Louis catch them again, even though they're only a half game in front of 3 of those teams and 1 game in front of St. Louis. And they also can't lose ground behind the Diamondbacks and the Phillies, who have given them life by coming back down to earth. Mostly the Phillies. I mean, Arizona's climbed the ladder a little bit. Cubs are helping. The Yankees are helping you out right now as they're beating the Cubs. That's going to make it, potentially you could be 6 games back in Chicago. Yesterday was a good opportunity for the Padres to kind of keep pace of being, 6 games back from Chicago. But they can't really afford to give up too many more opportunities right now at this point in the season, Frank. They need to lock in and start racking up wins when they can. Last night will happen. They're not going to win every single game from here on out, but you can allow last night to happen if you take care of business over the weekend. But I think it really matters more about where you're at in terms of games back than what you do in the series. I mean, if they go 2-2, but they're one game back out of a wild card spot come Monday, you would take that over staying the same and winning 3 games. I mean, this is more about games back in the standings than anything else.
What do you mean they're not going to win all the games?
They're not going to win all the games. I hate to tell you. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news on that one, but they weren't going to win every game on the way out.
Yeah, of course they weren't. I mean,
they were going to win every game but one, so that was their one.
And there you go. Now they're going to win every single game for me. Okay, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's for the Padres right now. You need to, again, as we said, you need to win games. And thought that they would have gone 5-1 on this road trip. Well, there's your on this homestand. Well, there's your one. Arizona coming up next is going to be very, very important for you in order to, not only get into a better position in the wild card, but also to pick up second place in the Western Division. But right now, your focus is just winning games. And as we said earlier in the show, it doesn't matter how you do it at this point. You just have to get it done. And an off night last night felt more like a bump in the road instead of, okay, this is just the team getting back to level again.
Yeah, I think last night you can flush last night. A couple things didn't go their way. I mean, one of the runs that they gave up. They can't walk people. They gave up a walk that ended up coming around to score in the first inning. JP Sears gave up a bad pitch that was a home run. You're lucky that Fernando robbed a home run.
That's what I was just about to say.
Because that could have been 3-0 in the first instead of just 1-0. And then you gave up you have a shift against Devers, and he actually dropped down a bunt for a hit. And this is why it's always amazing to me why teams don't do that more often or players don't do that more often. I understand that it's probably better for you to hit the ball in the gap, and I think teams would rather take doubles than bunt singles. But if you do that every once in a while, teams are going to stop shifting you, especially if you score. I mean, the shift didn't work out for the Padres in that at bat. Devers actually dropped down a bunt. Nobody was there. He was able to reach first base, and he comes around to score later in the inning. Those are the plays that hurt the Padres defensively. And then on offense, they had multiple opportunities to get that next hit, get that next pitch, execute and finish plays. and they were unable to do so. So they have to take advantage of as many opportunities as possible. And tonight's another one, going against a rookie starting pitcher for the Giants. I mean, if you want to tip your cap to Robbie Ray, the guy's pitching a sub 1.04 ERA of his last 7 starts, and he looks like a guy that's trying to play his way out of San Francisco right now. Fair enough. That's not who this kid is. Wisenhunt's not that guy. Okay, he's got a 4.8 something ERA. He's a rookie pitcher. They got to capitalize, and they got to capitalize of opportunities when that window opens up, and it's going to open up this weekend. You got some important games that could go your way, and right now the Yankees-Cubs game is currently going your way. That's more of a distance game, trying to track down Chicago. But I think we learned last year, Frank, the importance of hosting a wild card series. There's a massive importance to that.
No, it absolutely was. And right now, if this season kind of finishes where it could be and the potential to finish second in the wild card race, which is definitely there for this team, if they can get the pitching staff figured out, you'll be going right back to Chicago right at this point.
A place that you got your ass handed to you this year that obviously needs to be drastically different second time around if that is the case. But you would rather have those games at home. And there's no guarantee you're going to make the playoffs. I know you got to be focused on getting in a playoff spot first, but it's right there. They could quickly move to that number 2 spot, or should I say the 5th seed in the wild card as well. And that's probably better than playing the Brewers in the first round or whoever it would be. I guess it would be the 3rd division leader, which is Atlanta. Is that who it is right now?
Yeah.
It'd be Atlanta. Maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe it actually is better to play Atlanta. But the way the Padres have played Atlanta this year, I know they lost 3 out of 4 in Atlanta. That was all by 1 run. I mean, the Padres have done very well against Atlanta this year. Maybe you kind of want to play Atlanta.
This is sounding like a very familiar conversation to what we had last year. Do you want to finish 5th or do you want to
finish 6th?
Do you want to tank to finish 6th?
Well, that was more of like who you would play the
better
next
matchup,
round, right? That was more like the second round. It's like, do you want to play the Dodgers? You want to play the Brewers? Or whatever it was at the time. I can't remember off the top of my head. But, I mean, at this point, I'd rather play the Braves. The Braves have choked in the playoffs a lot more than, like, I don't know. I just feel like the Cubs get, like, lucky every once in a while. But at this point, you're just... And the way this team has played all season, you're just hoping that you would just get in. Who cares? At that point, you're just trying to get in. But this is a very big opportunity for them this weekend against the Giants. They got to be able to take care of business, and it'd be nice for them to get all 3 games in the win column. And then you go into Monday feeling good. To be 58 and 54 would be swell. You probably would be either, you could be a game back. You wouldn't be a game. You would, if they took, you could pick up a game if Arizona or Philly take 2 out of 3. Being 1 game back of Arizona on Monday on the trade deadline would be fantastic, and then you would control your own destiny at that point against Arizona. And this is this next 4 games against Arizona and then 3 back at home. These are the 7 most important games of the season. So we'll see what they do come Monday, but they got to take care of business this weekend against the Giants. When we come back, we'll talk about San Diego FC. We're going to get Drake Hills on to talk about San Diego FC to recap or to finish up the week, and then pass it along to Gwen and Chris on San Diego's number 1 sports station 97 through the Fan. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, We Know How, final segment of the week. No better way to end a week on a good note than having our boy Drake Hills on. Drake Hills joining us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. Talking soccer. We had the All-Star game this week. Always great to talk to Drake, especially on a Friday. Drake, how's your Friday going?
What's going on, Braden? It's fantastic. It's been an insane July. I mean, obviously with the knockout stages of the World Cup and that coming to a close a couple of weeks ago, and then of course the return of MLS, Anders Dreyer being a part of the MLS All-Star game on Wednesday, and next thing you know, we're in the dog days of summer for MLS, officially in August. So SDFC has a bunch of work to do, but it should be exciting.
They got Minnesota this weekend. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but they have a newcomer now and a new designated player. And we knew a little bit about it last week, but what can you tell San Diego FC and their fans, or San Diego FC fans, about their new designated player, Elias and Corey?
Yeah, I mean, we saw him in the World Cup, right? So this very fascinating player. He's kind of in that creative role, all right? And he's kind of in that attacking midfielder, can play out wide, can play in the midfield, can also play as like a false nine. So I'm excited for Elias because I think what he does is he kind of gives you like a two-way tandem. He can be that creator that can help Anders Dreyer and Marcus Ingvartsen score a little bit more, but he can also score himself. And so you're bringing in some World Cup experience from Morocco, has played in the Danish league, so he's very familiar with how SDFC wants to play, particularly FC Nordsjælland. And he's familiar with how they play, obviously, with Rights to Dream and the overall setup. Not to say that everything is identical, but he's familiar. So I think his I guess you can call it his matriculation into the team is going to be pretty smooth. But I think SDFC fans should expect, someone to, in a very European-based fashion, to take some time, get used to the climate of playing in these hot summer games. Although I think the World Cup will have helped Elias. But I do think that we'll start to see him really catch up to speed around the time that we're talking about the end of the season. So it should be very exciting for SDFC fans.
SDFC getting off of a 1-0 win over FC Dallas in their most recent match. And, that was last Saturday. A couple of storylines in that one. Obviously, the way that FC Dallas beat up on SDFC last time, they completely shut down. It was good to see CJ Dos Santos earn a clean sheet. But also, how about the emergence of Alejandro Alvarado Jr.? Mikey Varas gave him an opportunity to play in Colorado. Loved so much what he saw that he put him in as a starter, went with his gut, went with playing the hot hand, and he goes and he gets Mikey Varas a goal as a midfielder. What was your biggest takeaway from the game against FC Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, a complete different perspective and analysis than we would have talked about earlier this spring with the 3-3 come from behind. It was a draw, but it felt like it was more of a loss given that the lead that SDFC had in that first meeting. And this second meeting, I think that what we talked about going in was how can they play structured? How can they control possession? How can they play with an advantage, meaning with the ball? Like even if obviously the game wasn't as, from an attacking perspective, wasn't as entertaining, but SDFC really controlled the pace of the entire game. Like FC Dallas, unfortunately, they had from that set piece, had a emergency goalkeeper change. I think that changed a lot in terms of adding pressure. They couldn't necessarily break from SDFC's high press. What I saw was a lot of pressure on Sebastian Ibiaga, Shaq Moore, and that back line, a very experienced back line from FC Dallas. But Alvarado, given that he kind of came out of the LA Galaxy system, hadn't really gotten the chance in MLS to be kind of a frontline guy. And so it's if you're writing a post-game story or a sidebar, you're really talking about his resilience and being able to remain available, to remain ready when his number is called, and to see him get that goal at the beginning of the second half of the season, I think that's going to set him up for success as we go into August and September.
San Diego FC trying to play their way into obviously a playoff spot. They currently sit 12th in the table. They're trailing a handful of teams, including one of them that they're going to play coming up on Saturday against Minnesota. How do you see this one playing out? What is the key to victory for San Diego FC on Saturday?
Yeah, I think they need to forget, what happened earlier this year, right? I mean, obviously Minnesota being able to come to San Diego. Look, I mean, I think we do need to continue talking about Alejandro Alvarado. I think that's important as well. Almost like a new player. It's like you had a new signing in a way. Him getting his first MLS goal, there's a shock to the system, not just for Alejandro, but I think for the entire team to see someone else to add to the goal tally of Marcus Ingvartsen, to add to the goal tally of Anders Dreyer. Again, it just feels like there's an extra boost. So I think what SDFC fans should think about is, here's a guy who came from this very terrible knee injury last year, has spent the first half of the season trying to get back to himself. I think you need to go into Minnesota. You need to go against this really tough team, essentially leaning on that narrative of like, hey, we've got extra firepower and we need to continue applying pressure in the high press. And I think also what they need to do is continue to be direct in possession, being patient with chances, trying to get as many services in from out wide as possible, and just applying as much pressure, not only in the build-up and run of play, but also in their set pieces as well.
We got a lot going on right now, Drake. We're talking with Drake Hills, who is our soccer analyst, calling in on the SDCCU fan hotline. We talk to him each and every Friday. A lot about San Diego FC, but we got a lot going on with FIFA. At the conclusion of the World Cup, we've had a lot of issues now with FIFA.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of recap, it sounds like, and you can explain it further, but I want to know your takeaway of this. The latest on this is, they got private equity potentially infiltrating FIFA, and they're saying like, well, we could pass the money along to all these other countries and their teams. And UEFA's like, yeah, we don't want to do this. In fact, we will not participate in the World Cup if you decide to do this. They've had a couple executives at FIFA step down. They're still trying to push their 64-team tournament for the World Cup and the next one through. I mean, there's a lot going on with FIFA right now. Drake, what is your biggest takeaway from all of this? And, do you think UEFA's pressure is going to make FIFA back down a little bit on this private equity?
Yeah, I've been asked this question, particularly from the perspective of UEFA, right? But I don't want to, exclude the fact that, where we are in San Diego, California, and the United States, we're part of CONCACAF, which is another confederation in which, CONCACAF has already protested this as well. So I just want to make sure listeners are aware that this is essentially a civil war of Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, versus all of the governing bodies that make up FIFA, all the governing bodies, whether that's CONCACAF here in North America and the Caribbean, in Central America, but you also have UEFA of Europe, and multiple guys are continuing to either leave FIFA or to say, hey, this isn't it. Carlos Cordero, a big wig in FIFA, has already stepped down from his position. I think going back to FIFA, though, there are two teams since the late 1950s, early 60s that have won the World Cup. There's Argentina and Brazil. You've got Italy as a champion. You've got Spain. You've got Germany. You've got France, right? All those teams are European. So Italy, obviously, if I didn't mention them as well, and I know Braden and Frank, I have to make sure I mention the Italians.
You got to mention it twice because they haven't been in the World Cup in the last three sittings. So I think to remind people that they actually did win a FIFA World Cup. I think you'd have to say it twice.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, for all my Italianos out there, they've won the European Championship as well. So let's give credit where credit is due. But I just want to make the point that it's been a long time since we've seen a consecutive non-European nation win the World Cup. So without UEFA members, quite frankly, there is no World Cup. But I don't want to disrespect Argentina, Brazil, even other nations outside of Europe that could also be contenders, whether it's Colombia, whether it's Mexico. There are other nations outside of Europe that are also formidable opponents, but I just want to give history its light here and say that without the European nations, you don't have a World Cup. And so if UEFA stands its ground, which I believe they will, whether it's a 48-team World Cup, whether it's a 64-team, summer madness World Cup, it won't happen. And to be clear, this isn't just for the men's side. This affects the women's side as well. So for our U.S. women's national team fans, obviously with Spain on the women's side, the Netherlands, England, Brazil, given the fact that they're going to be hosting it. And we know what happened in the June window when Brazil and the U.S. faced off. So there's a legit competition when everyone is at the table. But I think that this will destroy this $20 billion equity stake kind of commercial arm of FIFA that would oversee both World Cups, would destroy the FIFA World Cup as we know it.
Last thing for you, because we got a little bit of time to kind of the follow-up. I mean, do you think cooler heads will prevail in this particular deal, or do you think this could be even more disastrous? I mean, obviously they have a little bit of time before the next World Cup, but as you mentioned, UEFA kind of has all the leverage right now on the cards because they fill out like most of the World Cup. But I would imagine FIFA's probably going to get their 64 teams, but they kind of had this with the Super League problem too, and then all of a sudden they back down. So do you see that trending in the same direction as this?
Well, I think that there's I'm not going to say it's apples and oranges a comparison, because I do think there's a clear similarity in terms of the power that has the key, even if people don't think so. Like the fact that this tournament, and I wasn't a proponent of a 48-team World Cup, and yet I think the storylines of Cabo Verde, of Jordan, of Uzbekistan, of even the likes of like an Ivory Coast or a DR Congo, these were successful stories in this summer's tournament, and you're going to see it again next year in the Women's World Cup. But what I think in terms of calmer heads prevailing, I think you're going to need a Saudi Arabia, who obviously will be hosting a men's World Cup, or even on the federational side, whether it's Spain and Portugal hosting a continental tournament, obviously Brazil hosting the Women's World Cup next year. I think you're going to need the host nations to also join in FIFA and say, hey, we're not going to host this. Like we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We know the revenue that could come from hosting this World Cup, and the GDP for our nation would be very fruitful. But we're going to side with the people and understand, just as UEFA has said, football is not for sale. Football belongs to the people. And so I think you're going to need others to join in with UEFA to make sure that this $20 billion equity sales or sell-off does not happen, because Joshua Kushner and this Thrive internal or eternal private equity firm that wants to essentially run the World Cup, I think that would be an ultimate doomsday, an apocalypse for world sport as we know it.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Drake, we appreciate the time as always. We look forward to talking to you next week. Get a recap of San Diego FC and Minnesota. Enjoy the weekend.
Absolutely. Take care, Braden. Have a great weekend.
Drake Hill's joining us, the SDCCU Fan Hotline. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. Enjoy the games this weekend. When we come back on Monday, it's trade deadline day. Gwen and Chris coming up next.